Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting adventure. Today, Audio Novel presents Game of Thrones, Another Dragons by Creations X. And if you're looking for more amazing stories, don't forget to check out my Patreon page. Your support helps turn incredible tales like this one into fully immersive audiobooks. Join me on this journey, and together, we can bring more stories to life. Thank you for being part of the adventure. Let's begin. Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting adventure. Today, Audio Novel presents Game of Thrones, Another Dragons by Creations X. And if you're looking for more amazing stories, don't forget to check out my Patreon page. Your support helps turn incredible tales like this one into fully immersive audiobooks. Join me on this journey, and together, we can bring more stories to life. Thank you for being part of the adventure. Let's begin. Chapter 42. Bahamut didn't intend to halt Rhaenys leaving. Eddard, grappling with the weight of Bahamut's proposal, finally spoke up, his voice strained, "I need time, Lord." Bahamut acknowledged his request, saying, "You may have that time, and you can return to Winterfell." Amidst the crowd, unbeknownst to most, there was another presence waiting for the opportune moment to act. However, Bahamut's keen eyes didn't let this go unnoticed. He declared, before court proceeds, "I wish to deal with a rat." Turning his gaze toward his soldiers, he called out, "Jaqen Hagar, how long do you plan to masquerade as one of my men?" Bahamut had already employed his magic to ensure that the faceless man wouldn't escape his grasp, using telekinesis to keep him firmly in place. The other soldiers retreated, leaving the lone infiltrator unable to move an inch. Bahamut continued, "Peter Baelish did his homework. Unfortunately, your target won't meet his end today." With those words, flames suddenly materialized from nowhere, consuming the faceless man. Bahamut reclined, telling Eddard, "The next time we meet, you should have an answer for me. Return to your home." Soldiers assisted Eddard Stark in getting up and escorting him away. Observing that Bahamut had no intention of dealing with the remaining prisoners, Aegon decided to take matters into his own hands. He instructed the soldiers to remove them, leaving Bahamut to rest. That night, Rhaenys approached Bahamut, a sense of hesitation weighing on her. She believed her recent actions might have disappointed Bahamut. Bahamut, though he noticed her presence, remained reclined, waiting to hear what she had to say. With a bow, Rhaenys addressed Bahamut, "Pop, please forgive me for my actions. I was wrong. I wasn't aware of what was happening, and I struggled to come to terms with the truth. I hope you're not mad at me." Seeing Bahamut's silence and a hint of disappointment in his demeanor, she began to turn away. However, just as she was about to walk away, Bahamut lifted his head and spoke, "Rhaenys, even though you are no longer a child, you'll always be one of my children. So, don't disappoint me by asking for forgiveness." Rhaenys couldn't contain her happiness and rushed to embrace Bahamut, her heart lightened. Bahamut then shared a request with her, "I want you to undertake a task, if you are willing." Rhaenys, curious, looked at Bahamut as she took a few steps back. Bahamut revealed his request, "Bring your aunt home." Rhaenys, with a playful expression, responded, "Yes, my lord." Bahamut then provided instructions, "Wait for her in Qarth, and bring her here when she reaches Qarth." Intrigued, Rhaenys posed a question she had always wanted to ask, "Pop, how do you know all these like she will come to Qarth?" Bahamut, with an air of mystery, replied, "There are things you're better off not knowing." Rhaenys pouted, unconvinced by Bahamut's response, but she settled down beside him on the ground, just as she used to do in the past. The following morning, Rhaenys, accompanied by her husband, set sail for Qarth, with her dragon following behind the ship. Chapter 42. Bahamut didn't intend to halt Rhaenys leaving. Eddard, grappling with the weight of Bahamut's proposal, finally spoke up, his voice strained, "I need time, Lord." Bahamut acknowledged his request, saying, "You may have that time, and you can return to Winterfell." Amidst the crowd, unbeknownst to most, there was another presence waiting for the opportune moment to act. However, Bahamut's keen eyes didn't let this go unnoticed. He declared, before court proceeds, "I wish to deal with a rat." Turning his gaze toward his soldiers, he called out, "Jaqen Hagar, how long do you plan to masquerade as one of my men?" Bahamut had already employed his magic to ensure that the faceless man wouldn't escape his grasp, using telekinesis to keep him firmly in place. The other soldiers retreated, leaving the lone infiltrator unable to move an inch. Bahamut continued, Peter Baelish did his homework. Unfortunately, your target won't meet his end today. With those words, flames suddenly materialized from nowhere, consuming the faceless man. Bahamut reclined, telling Eddard, the next time we meet, you should have an answer for me. Return to your home. Soldiers assisted Eddard Stark in getting up and escorting him away. Observing that Bahamut had no intention of dealing with the remaining prisoners, Aegon decided to take matters into his own hands. He instructed the soldiers to remove them, leaving Bahamut to rest. That night, Rhaenys approached Bahamut, a sense of hesitation weighing on her. She believed her recent actions might have disappointed Bahamut. Bahamut, though he noticed her presence, remained reclined, waiting to hear what she had to say. With a bow, Rhaenys addressed Bahamut, Pop, please forgive me for my actions. I was wrong. I wasn't aware of what was happening, and I struggled to come to terms with the truth. I hope you're not mad at me. Seeing Bahamut's silence and a hint of disappointment in his demeanor, she began to turn away. However, just as she was about to walk away, Bahamut lifted his head and spoke, Rhaenys, even though you are no longer a child, you'll always be one of my children. So, don't disappoint me by asking for forgiveness. Rhaenys couldn't contain her happiness and rushed to embrace Bahamut, her heart lightened. Bahamut then shared a request with her, I want you to undertake a task, if you are willing. Rhaenys, curious, looked at Bahamut as she took a few steps back. Bahamut revealed his request, bring your aunt home. Rhaenys, with a playful expression, responded, yes, my lord. Bahamut then provided instructions, wait for her in Qarth, and bring her here when she reaches Qarth. Intrigued, Rhaenys posed a question she had always wanted to ask, Pop, how do you know all these like she will come to Qarth? Bahamut, with an air of mystery, replied, there are things you're better off not knowing. Rhaenys pouted, unconvinced by Bahamut's response, but she settled down beside him on the ground, just as she used to do in the past. The following morning, Rhaenys, accompanied by her husband, set sail for Qarth, with her dragon following behind the ship. Chapter 44. Bahamut soared through the northern skies, propelled by the power of magic that had intensified since the arrival of the Red Comet. The dragon's flight was swift and silent, high above the lands below. His destination was the legendary Great Wall of the North, a colossal structure of ice sustained by ancient magic. As Bahamut approached the northern territories, the air grew colder, and the landscape transformed into a frozen expanse. His immense wings sliced through the air as he continued his journey, bypassing Winterfell and other landmarks unnoticed. With the aid of magic, Bahamut accelerated his flight speed, covering great distances in mere moments. The dragon's gaze was fixed on the distant outline of the Great Wall, a marvel that even a creature of his magnitude found impressive. The wall, a colossal structure of ice sustained by ancient magic, loomed ahead. Bahamut marveled at the incredible sight, his dragon heart swelling with a mix of awe and satisfaction. A creature nearly 200 meters in length, Bahamut couldn't help but appreciate the sheer magnitude of the wall. As he flew above Last Hearth, Bahamut continued westward in search of Castle Black. Sable Hall, abandoned by the Night's Watch, briefly caught his attention, but he pressed on, eager to reach the heart of the wall, the symbolic Castle Black. Amidst the preparations of the Night's Watch ranging party, a sudden disturbance in the sky captured the attention of every man at Castle Black. Their eyes turned skyward, and a collective gasp escaped their lips as a massive shadow eclipsed the sky. A dragon was descending upon them. Bahamut, the colossal dragon, circled above Castle Black, his powerful wings creating a gust of wind that stirred the cold northern air. The men of the Night's Watch, already hardened by the perils beyond the wall, felt a new kind of fear creeping in. With each pass, Bahamut surveyed the outpost, his intelligence keenly aware of the humans below. He recognized the concentration of activity in one specific area, the gate of Castle Black. Sensing an opportunity, he decided to land just outside the gate, aware that the cramped space within the castle could not accommodate his immense form. As Bahamut touched down, the ground trembled beneath him, sending ripples of unease through the Night's Watch. They hesitated, unsure of what to make of the colossal creature before them. The dragon waited patiently, a silent and imposing presence outside the gate, inviting the Night's Watch to approach. The day became tense as the men of the Night's Watch gathered on the towering walls of Castle Black, uncertainty etched on their faces. Bahamut, the colossal dragon, loomed in the distance. Most of these men had never encountered a dragon before, and fear gripped their hearts. Clutching whatever makeshift weapons they could find, the men nervously eyed the dragon, unsure of how to confront a creature nearly half the height of the Great Wall. The atmosphere was thick with tension as they positioned themselves on the cold, stone walls of Castle Black, their anxiety palpable. Sensing the hostility from the men, Bahamut, the mighty dragon, decided to break the silence. His voice resonated through the air, surprising everyone present. "I wish to meet Aemon Targaryen," Bahamut declared, his words cutting through the uneasy stillness. The men exchanged incredulous glances, unable to fathom that the fearsome beast could speak. "Did that damn beast just talk?" murmured one of the watchmen, voicing the disbelief shared by all. Bahamut's unexpected request hung in the air, leaving the men bewildered and on edge. Jeor Mormont, the seasoned Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, took charge. He commanded his men to fetch Maester Aemon, believing dragons asking for him from the depths of Castle Black's library. Unbeknownst to the men, Bahamut employed magic to ensure that everyone within the castle could hear his booming voice. In the dimly lit library, Maester Aemon, both old and wise, heard Bahamut's voice echoing through the corridors. His aged blinded eyes widened with recognition, not knowing that the dragon sought not only him but also another Aemon, Jon Snow. As Maester Aemon slowly made his way outside, the men on the walls remained oblivious to Bahamut's dual intentions. The dragon's unexpected ability to speak and his specific request for Aemon Targaryen left the Night's Watch in a state of disbelief and anticipation. The cold night air carried a sense of foreboding, and the fate of Castle Black hung in the balance. Chapter 45. Bahamut settled gracefully on the frozen surface, his massive form casting an imposing presence. As he lay there, warmth radiated from his colossal body, causing the ice around him to surrender to the heat. The men atop Castle Black's walls felt the intensity of Bahamut's heat, further heightening the dragon's intimidating aura. In the midst of this spectacle, Aemon Targaryen emerged from Castle Black, his frail figure navigating the cold terrain. Jon Snow, recognizing the fragility of the elderly Aemon, extended a helping hand. Aemon accepted the gesture, grateful for the support offered by the young man. The reluctance of others to accompany Maester Aemon to the awaiting dragon left Jeor Mormont with no choice but to join him on this encounter. Unaware of the dragons was summoning him until he stepped outside, Aemon was taken aback to know uttered by the very creature that lay ahead before him. Despite the shock, Aemon's desire to meet the dragon and experience its touch prevailed. His frail form moved forward, a silent acknowledgement of the lingering Targaryen legacy within him. Observing Aemon's determined steps, Jon Snow expressed his willingness to accompany the elderly Maester and Jeor Mormont to the dragon. However, Mormont, with a stern gaze, denied Jon's request, intending to shield him from potential danger. Before the Lord Commander could articulate his reasons further, Bahamut, utilizing his magical abilities, intervened. "Let him come," echoed Bahamut's voice through the air, leaving everyone in stunned silence. The dragon's unexpected approval paved the way for Jon Snow to approach the meeting between Aemon and Bahamut. As they cautiously approached Bahamut, Jeor Mormont and Jon Snow gripped their swords with uncertainty, unsure of the effectiveness of their weapons against the massive beast before them. The air was thick with tension as they closed the distance. Sensing their apprehension, Bahamut ceased the release of his intimidating presence, concerned that his sheer power might harm the elderly Maester Aemon. Aemon, his anticipation palpable, raised a hand toward Bahamut, a silent plea for a touch. Responding to the unspoken request, Bahamut gradually lowered his colossal head. Jeor Mormont and Jon Snow, uncertain of how to react, instinctively took a step back, swords at the ready. Aemon, however, felt a surge of emotion as he sensed the dragon's massive presence. With a gentle movement, Bahamut allowed the old man to feel his immense form. Aemon's trembling hand met the warmth of Bahamut's scaled chin, a moment that left both Jeor Mormont and Jon Snow stunned and terrified by the proximity of the dragon's head. Overwhelmed by the experience, tears welled up in Maester Aemon's eyes. He spoke softly, his voice filled with a mix of gratitude and longing, "I wish I could see." In the midst of the profound moment, Bahamut sighed inwardly, a silent acknowledgement of the weighty role he played in the continuation of the Targaryen family line. He thought, "You should be glad because of me your family line continues." Breaking the silence, Bahamut revealed a piece of crucial information. King's Landing has been taken back by the rightful ruler. I wish, as a family, House Targaryen should stand together. I wish both Aemon accompany me to King's Landing. The Night's Watch, already aware of the Targaryen reclaiming of King's Landing, was now faced with the revelation that Maester Aemon belonged to House Targaryen. However, confusion lingered about the meaning behind Bahamut's reference to both. Aemon couldn't help but voice his inquiry, both. Bahamut's gaze shifted to Jon Snow, and with a resolute affirmation, he stated, yes. This unexpected revelation prompted Jon to take a step back, his disbelief evident as he blurted out, me. The dragon's response was unwavering. Yes, you are, little Aemon of House Targaryen. Jon, still grappling with the notion, adamantly denied his Targaryen lineage, asserting, I'm a bastard of House Stark, Jon Snow. I'm not the person you are looking for. Bahamut corrected him, revealing a truth that left both Jon and Maester Aemon stunned. You are Stark, but not just Stark, Bahamut explained. Jon, bewildered, sought clarification, asking, what do you mean? In response, Bahamut posed a question that plunged Jon into a moment of contemplative silence. Are you aware of your origin? The revelation that followed shook the foundations of Jon's understanding, as Bahamut disclosed, you are the legitimate son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. Aemon Targaryen of House Targaryen. The weight of Bahamut's words hung in the air, leaving Jon and Maester Aemon grappling with the profound truth of Jon's lineage. Chapter 46. Aemon found himself in a state of surprise upon discovering that another member of his family resided among the Night's Watch. However, for Jon, the revelation proved to be a bitter pill to swallow. His entire life had been shaped by the belief that he was a Stark bastard, and the idea that Eddard Stark, an honorable man, had lied to him seemed inconceivable. Amidst Jon's internal turmoil, Bahamut's words cut through his thoughts. Little Aemon, you are not a bastard of Stark. It's just a facade your uncle made to protect you as a Stark. You should be thankful to him. The dragon's words jolted Jon from his contemplation. Bahamut then posed a question, breaking the weighty silence. Are you willing to come with me to King's Landing? Meanwhile, Maester Aemon, with a sigh, addressed the dragon, seeking clarification on how to address him. Bahamut responded simply, Bahamut. Expressing his commitment to his Night's Watch vows, Aemon said, Lord Bahamut, I have a vow to keep until my last breath as a man of the Night's Watch. I hope you forgive this fragile old man. Turning his gaze to Jon, Bahamut patiently awaited his response. Jon, unwilling to meet Bahamut's eyes, spoke firmly, Lord Bahamut, I'm a man of the Night's Watch. I vow to live and die as a man of the Night's Watch. Forgive me. Bahamut, observing Jon's steadfastness, remarked on the stubbornness inherent in the blood of Stark and Targaryen. Addressing Jon directly, Bahamut asserted, you really do have the blood of Stark, the stubbornness of this level. No one dares to raise a sword in my presence, why do you bother to leave the watch? You are blood of the dragon, not one bound by anything but the one who binds others. You are a shame for a dragon to take such a vow at a young age. Jon, looking at Bahamut, expressed his gratitude for finally knowing his true lineage. Bahamut lowered his head towards Jon, creating a moment of anticipation. Suddenly, a hot sensation occurred on Jon's shoulder, a sigil mark of House Targaryen appeared. Bahamut declared, when you rise again, I will take you back with me. Until then, continue to be an idiot. Confused by the appearance of the Targaryen sigil, Jon gazed at Bahamut. It was a tracker, ensuring Bahamut could locate him when he ventured beyond the wall. Before leaving, Maester Aemon, fueled by curiosity, asked about the rarity of talking dragons. As Bahamut took to the air, he responded, because I'm the king of dragons. And with that proclamation, the dragon left. In the aftermath of Bahamut's departure from Castle Black, a crucial detail slipped through the cracks, communication with Jeor Mormont, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Perhaps Bahamut's annoyance, fueled by Jon's words, caused this oversight. While lords from different lands received summons to King's Landing, prompted by the fear of facing the dragon's wrath if they ignored the call. However, some lords chose not to respond, with those from the Vale and Westerlands knowing their fate, death awaited them, whether they answered the summon or not. The Vale's decision, in particular, was influenced by the unwavering stance of their stubborn sick lady. As the news spread, Eddard Stark moved swiftly towards King's Landing, where he faced protests from his family and loyalists. The murmurs calmed as they learned more about the unfolding events, realizing the dire consequences of resisting House Targaryen. Despite the losses suffered in the war against the Targaryen in the past, they decided to follow Eddard Stark's decision, respecting him as their lord. In Dorne, the Lord Paramount, along with his brother and family, journeyed to King's Landing to reunite with their sister and her family. Meanwhile, Lord Balon Greyjoy of the Iron Islands grappled with the decision to answer Aegon's summon. The news of 5 dragons and more than 20,000 battleships troubled him, threatening the Iron Islands' reputation as the largest fleet in Westeros. Renly Baratheon faced a similar dilemma, uncertain of whether he would be pardoned for his actions, considering his brother's fate. The thought of fleeing to Essos crossed his mind, contemplating whether resistance was futile. House Tully found themselves torn about answering Aegon's call, unsure if it was the right decision. House Tyrell, on the other hand, from the Reach, marched towards King's Landing, intending to pledge loyalty to Aegon. Rumors circulated of a proposed marriage between a young Tyrell lady and Aegon Targaryen, a strategic move to solidify their allegiance. The intricate web of alliances, doubts, and decisions set the stage for a complex political landscape in the wake of Bahamut's presence in Westeros. Chapter 47. In the period before the arrival of all the lords in Westeros at King's Landing, Bahamut made his return. His absence had allowed the people of King's Landing to focus on cleaning and improving their surroundings, with a particular emphasis on clearing the drainage system to alleviate the city's notorious stench. During this time, Aegon took practical steps to rebuild the city. He enlisted the help of men from other cities and repurposed soldiers who were once builders or workers. Their collective efforts were concentrated on reconstructing the damaged drainage systems and structures, especially the gates that bore the brunt of their earlier attack. Addressing the issue of food scarcity, Aegon utilized funds to purchase food resources from the free cities, providing relief to the inhabitants of King's Landing. Most significantly, Aegon took measures to tackle the rampant crime and thievery that had plagued the city. To achieve this, he appointed an experienced old general as the Lord Commander of the city. Under the old general's leadership, crime rates plummeted, and thievery became a thing of the past. The city underwent a transformation, not just in its physical appearance but in the overall atmosphere. A sense of security and order began to prevail as King's Landing prepared to welcome the lords of Westeros. During this, from across the narrow sea, a visitor arrived in the throne room of Aegon in King's Landing. It was none other than Melisandre, the Red Priestess of the Lord of Light, on a mission to spread her faith. Aegon, intrigued, granted her an audience. Yet, within the court of Aegon, the sorcerers were wary, sensing the strength of Melisandre's magic. She approached Aegon, bowed respectfully, and greeted him with, "Greetings, Your Grace." Aegon nodded, giving her permission to speak. Curious, Aegon questioned her, "Why do you seek my presence, Red Priestess?" Melisandre calmly responded, "Your Grace, the Lord of Light has spoken to me in visions and flames. He has shown me signs of the prince that was promised, the one who shall stand against the darkness." Aegon, skeptical, raised an eyebrow, prompting Melisandre to explain, "The red star bleeding is a celestial event, foretelling the rebirth of Azor Ahai. In times of great peril, amidst smoke and salt, the chosen one shall be born again." Attempting to play along, Aegon asked, "Born again? Dragons from stone? What does this have to do with me?" Melisandre looked into his eyes and claimed, "Your Grace, I have seen you in the flames. I have seen a mighty warrior, a leader with the blood of dragons. The prophecy speaks of a ruler who shall unite the realms, bringing light to the world." Aegon, still skeptical, challenged her visions, saying, "Visions in the flames, priestess? My court is filled with sorcerers who claim to see the future. What makes your visions any different?" General intervened, blocking her approach with his halberd, and Melisandre asserted, "The Lord of Light does not deceive. The flames do not lie. I have seen you on the Iron Throne, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. The dragons shall heed your call, and you shall lead them." Remaining calm, Aegon inquired, "Why me? And why now?" Melisandre confidently responded, "The Lord of Light works in mysterious ways, Your Grace. The time is now, the realm needs a savior. You possess the qualities foretold in the prophecy." Contemplating the situation, Aegon sought advice from Bahamut upon his arrival, uncertain about Melisandre's intentions. Unaware of Bahamut's past conflict with Red God's followers, Aegon cautiously agreed, "I am no stranger to destiny, priestess. But if what you say is true, then what must I do?" Melisandre, with a smile, encouraged him to embrace his destiny and promised guidance in fulfilling the prophecy. Aegon, cautiously considering her words, warned, "Very well, Red Priestess. I shall consider your words. But know this, if your visions prove false, there will be consequences. Until then, you can remain here as my guest." Melisandre bowed before leaving, expressing her faith that Aegon was the awaited savior. "The night is dark and full of terrors," she proclaimed, "but with your guidance, we shall prevail." Chapter 48. The night in King's Landing was abruptly interrupted by the thunderous roar of Bahamut, shaking the city awake even from the deepest slumber. The mighty dragon descended, landing near the yard of Maegor Holdfast, taking a moment to survey the city for any changes since his last visit. However, Bahamut sensed the presence of magic that he despised, the unmistakable aura of the Red God's followers. Summoning Aegon with urgency, Bahamut's call echoed through the night. Aegon, along with all the generals and sorcerers, swiftly gathered, bowing and greeting in unison, "Greetings, Lord Bahamut." The dragon wasted no time in getting to the point, expressing his displeasure. "I felt the magic of the Red God. Search for any priestess or priest in King's Landing. I want them as soon as possible." Aegon felt Bahamut's disdain for the followers of the Red God, hesitantly informed him, "Lord Bahamut, there happens to be someone from Asshai as our guest. She seems to speak of a prophecy similar to ours." Bahamut, with a sense of certainty, knew who the guest was based on the timeline of events. It was Melisandre. In response, Bahamut commanded, "Bring her here." The generals swiftly issued orders to their men to locate Melisandre, but to their surprise, she had already arrived, drawn by the powerful presence of the dragon. Standing before Bahamut, Melisandre felt an unusual sensation. Bahamut, towering over them with his immense presence, turned his piercing gaze toward Melisandre as she stood before him, draped in red robes that seemed to dance with the flicker of flames. Melisandre, confident in her faith, met Bahamut's gaze with unwavering determination. "Lord Bahamut," she began, her voice carrying the weight of conviction, "I am Melisandre, a servant of the Red God. I bring his light and follow his prophecies. I mean no harm to you or your people." Bahamut, his scales reflecting the moonlight, responded with a rumble that echoed through the night. "Red Priestess, I have felt the presence of your magic, and I abhor the influence of the Red God. What business do you have in Westeros?" Melisandre, standing firm, explained, "I have come to Westeros to fulfill a prophecy, one that speaks of a great power rising to challenge the darkness. It is a destiny intertwined with the very fabric of this world." Bahamut's voice echoed, reverberating through the air, "Your Lord of Light is nothing but a false god, a demon who thrives on the suffering and sacrifice of innocent lives. And your prophecies matter little to me." Melisandre, her eyes ablaze with conviction, asserted, "Death by fire is pure death. It purifies the soul and brings forth rebirth. Our sacrifices are made for a greater purpose, to ensure the survival of the realms of men." Bahamut snorted, a plume of smoke rising from his nostrils. "Survival built on the corpses of the innocent is no survival at all. Your faith is a cancer that spreads suffering and darkness. I will not allow it to fester in my kingdom." In an instant, Bahamut unleashed a burst of flame, surrounding Melisandre. The sorcerers and generals watched in silence as the Red Priestess, engulfed in the dragon's fiery wrath, uttered her last words. "The flames, they reveal the coming of the true savior." Bahamut, his anger unquenched, spoke with finality, "Your flames are nothing but lies. I wish to know if my flames would be merciful." With that, the fiery inferno consumed Melisandre, leaving behind nothing but ashes. The generals and sorcerers, though uneasy, dared not question the Dragon King's judgment. The night was still, the air thick with the scent of burnt sacrifice, as Bahamut turned away from the smoldering remains, his wrath momentarily satisfied. Chapter 49. The night hung heavy with tension as Bahamut's abrupt decision to burn Melisandre challenged Aegon's sense of rulership and the sacred law of guest rights. Aegon, considering her a guest, was troubled by Bahamut's actions, especially since her prophecy mirrored the very reason the Targaryens had come to conquer Westeros, a great winter coming from the far north, casting darkness upon the world. Only a Targaryen on the Iron Throne could unite the realm against this threat. Aegon, feeling the weight of uncertainty, decided to confront Bahamut. The ancient dragon lay peacefully on the Maegor Holdfast yard, and Aegon approached him, expressing the need to talk. Bahamut, with a glance, responded curtly, asking, "What?" Aegon, looking down, expressed his confusion, saying, "Pop, I need to understand. Why did you burn Melisandre? She was our guest, and her words spoke of a similar prophecy to the one that brought my ancestors to Westeros." Bahamut, sensing Aegon's unease, slowly raised his head and explained, "Aegon, the flames of the Red Priestess are not to be trusted. Her visions were tainted by a dark force, a force that seeks to exploit the vulnerabilities of men for its own gain. I could not allow that darkness to take root in our kingdom." However, Aegon, troubled by the decision, countered, "But she spoke of a great winter, a threat that could engulf the world in darkness. Doesn't that align with the reason my ancestors came to Westeros in the first place?" Bahamut, sighing, felt a sense of déjà vu as he thought, like father, like son. He calmly responded, "Aegon, the threat she spoke of is real, but her allegiance and methods were misguided. The Red God demands sacrifices, and those sacrifices would have come at the cost of innocent lives. I cannot permit such a path, not when I am the guardian of this realm." Aegon, realizing the gravity of the situation, nodded and acknowledged Bahamut's concern for the realm. However, he couldn't ignore the breach of hospitality laws. "I understand your concern for the realm, Pop, but we could have found another way. She was our guest, protected by the sacred laws of hospitality. Burning her without a fair trial goes against the very principles we stand for." Bahamut, maintaining his calm demeanor, explained, "Aegon, the laws of men are fleeting, but the laws of survival are eternal. I sensed a darkness within her, a darkness that threatened not only our rule but the very fabric of this world. I could not afford to take chances." Aegon, conflicted, looked into the night sky. "I wish you had discussed this with me before taking such drastic action. We are family, and family should decide together the fate of our guests, no matter how uncertain." Bahamut, with a gentler tone, reassured him, "Aegon, my child, sometimes a leader must bear the burden of decisions alone, to protect those he loves. I acted out of necessity, not out of malice. The flames of the Red Priestess were tainted, and I could not let that darkness consume us." As Bahamut lay down to rest again, Aegon, silent and contemplative, returned to his chamber, acknowledging that Bahamut acted for the greater good, even though human emotions could be complex. The night settled with a lingering sense of turmoil and reflection. Chapter 50. Staying in King's Landing started to feel cramped for Bahamut, finding only the dragon pit and mager fort suitable for his massive form. When Aegon suggested letting the young dragons stay in the dragon pit, Bahamut rejected the idea, stating, "Dragons are not prisoners to stay in there." Instead, he proposed Dragonstone as a more suitable residence for himself and the other dragons. Aegon, though a bit saddened by the prospect of not seeing Bahamut regularly, agreed to the plan. He promised to arrange a regular food supply to Dragonstone for Bahamut and the other dragons. With the decision made, Bahamut allowed Igneel to stay closer to Aegon, and together with Sapphire and Diaval, they took to the skies, leaving King's Landing for the more spacious and comfortable Dragonstone. While beyond the wall, wildling Craster, his face twisted with anger, dragged a bloodied Jon Snow into his keep and dumped the young men at the feet of Lord Commander Jeor Mormont. Craster was furious at Jon for spying on him and demanded that the Night's Watch leave. Outside, Jon rushed to explain what he had witnessed, Craster sacrificing his infant son to the White Walkers. To Jon's shock, Mormont already knew. However, in truth, Jon was unaware of what took away the infant. Before Jon could intervene, Craster knocked him down and dragged him to Jeor. That night, Jon couldn't sleep, haunted by what he saw in the forest, a shadow with blue fluorescent eyes. Unbeknownst to Jon, Bahamut could spy on him if he desired, sensing the magical disturbance from Jon's side. As Jon Snow glimpsed a White Walker, Bahamut reached out through the mind link they shared. "Eamon," Bahamut called, prompting Jon to look around cautiously, clutching the Valyrian steel sword Jeor had given him. Bahamut reassured him, "Eamon, no need to panic. I'm Bahamut." Confused, Jon wondered why he couldn't see Bahamut and why he was the only one hearing his voice. Bahamut reminded Jon of the mark he had left on him. Jon examined his shoulder, not realizing still how is this happening. Bahamut then asked if Jon had seen the White Walkers. A flash of terrifying thoughts raced through Jon's mind. Although he had heard stories of the White Walkers as a northerner, he never thought they were real. Fear gripped Jon, but Bahamut assured him, "Fear not, and don't approach them until you are strong enough." When Jon tried to communicate again, there was no response from Bahamut, leaving Jon alone with his thoughts and the unsettling reality of the looming threat beyond the wall. As lords from various regions slowly gathered in King's Landing, Renly Baratheon mustered the courage to approach the capital earlier than others, Storm's End being closer to King's Landing than most. However, attempts to seek an audience with the newly declared uncrowned King Aegon were thwarted by the officials appointed by Aegon himself. In this tense period, a strict rule was enforced: no lord was permitted to bring more than 10 of their own men into King's Landing. This restriction fueled apprehension among the lords, hinting at a sense of mistrust and an uncertainty of returning home safely. The atmosphere within the city bred fear, with whispers circulating about the intentions of the new king. Renly Baratheon, like others, found himself denied an audience with Aegon. The lords were cautious, knowing that any attempt to question the authority of the king could lead to dire consequences. Those who dared to raise their voices against the presence of Bahamut's men found themselves swiftly suppressed, forced to seek forgiveness to avoid further repercussions. Adding to the intrigue, the herald sent by Aegon offered no hints about what might transpire within the walls of King's Landing. The silence from the new ruler left the lords anxious and uncertain, wondering about the unfolding events. The Lord Paramount of the Reach, along with their entourage, was the second to arrive in King's Landing. However, they faced the same stringent rules as the other lords: no more than 10 of their own men, no audience with the new young King Aegon, and a sense of confinement within the city walls. The ominous atmosphere fueled fear, uncertainty, and regret. The Lord Paramount of the Reach, Olenna, had brought her entire family to King's Landing, trusting the words of the herald. The initial summons showed no signs of malice, yet the unfolding events painted a different picture. The trap seemed well planned by the new king, leaving the lords and their families in a state of confusion and concern. To their dismay, they discovered that they weren't the only ones ensnared in this scheme. The fear deepened as they realized that communication with their men outside the well-guarded city walls was impossible. The vigilant watch of Bahamut's men, coupled with the interception of ravens using sorcery, left the lords stranded in a state of uncertainty, their fate hanging in the balance. Chapter 51. The people from the Iron Islands, including Yara Greyjoy and Aeron Greyjoy representing the Lord Paramount, faced a challenge when they were denied entry into King's Landing by Bahamut's men. Aegon's decree was clear: without the presence of the Lord Paramount or their designated representative, entry was prohibited. Despite their attempts to explain that their lord was unwell and Yara Greyjoy stood as the heir to the Iron Islands, Bahamut's men remained firm in their decision. The situation grew more complicated, prompting them to send a raven to Pike, informing their Lord Paramount, Balon Greyjoy, of the predicament. Until they received a reply from Lord Balon, they were left stranded outside the gates of King's Landing. During this time, as more than 2,000 ships sailed from the Narrow Sea, bearing the Targaryen sigil, a group of individuals harbored the wish to follow Bahamut. However, upon reaching Een City, they discovered that Bahamut and his fleet had already departed from Et. Undeterred, they prepared their ships and joined forces with others who shared the same desire to follow Bahamut as their beacon of hope. During his stay in Et, despite Bahamut's initial portrayal as a destructive force, he also played a role as a benefactor to the people. His magic blessed the land, purging it of corrupt lords who had committed unspeakable acts, and providing the homeless with the chance for a better life. Even after Bahamut's departure, the people of Et continued to revere him as a deity. With Bahamut gone, the land of Et descended into chaos and war, instilling fear in the hearts of its inhabitants. Despite the turmoil, a deep-seated hope lingered within them, a hope that Bahamut would one day return. This hope inspired thousands of young men and women to embark on a journey in search of Bahamut, yearning to serve him and, if possible, bring him back to their homeland, becoming a part of the glorious legacy of Bahamut. Following the Lord Paramount of the Reach, the Lord Paramount of Dorne arrived in King's Landing, choosing the sea route. Like the other lords, they faced the same treatment, yet Doran Martell and Oberyn did not protest against the arrangements. They received a summons to the Red Keep and were asked to stay there. Aegon, being a relative, ensured fair treatment, not wanting to incur his mother's disapproval. But he maintained a neutral stance, understanding his role as a king to remain reserved. Upon their arrival, Elia Martell ran to join her brothers and family, hoping for a teary reunion. However, Aegon remained seated on the throne, following the teachings of Bahamut. The king must uphold a certain demeanor. Elia's brothers, recognizing the atmosphere, approached Aegon while Elia was about to question his aloofness. However, her husband stopped her. Under the watchful eyes of Bahamut's followers, Oberyn, supporting his brother, bowed and offered greetings to Aegon, though it went against their family motto. After a few exchanged words, Aegon left the throne room, indicating he had other matters to attend to. Despite the seductive gazes from Arianne Martell, the elder daughter of Doran Martell, Aegon, well aware of her history, ignored her advances. Other than her high-born status and beauty, in Aegon's eyes, she was no more than a mere whore at present, a sentiment shaped by the information Bahamut had provided about Westeros' important figures. Chapter 52. The last to arrive were the Lord Paramounts of the North and the Riverlands, accompanied by their bannermen and families, as per the summons directive to bring family members. Some bannermen sensed something suspicious and suggested returning to their lands upon approaching King's Landing. However, Eddard Stark, a man of honor, believed in Bahamut's intentions and dismissed the concerns, trusting that Bahamut wouldn't harm his men. As all the expected lords reached King's Landing, Aegon issued an order to arrange ships for them, destined for Dragonstone. Initially unclear about Aegon's intentions, the lords were informed of their next steps and destination. There was speculation that Aegon intended to crown himself the king of the Seven Kingdoms in Dragonstone, with all the lords of Westeros present. Little did they know that it was Bahamut who would ultimately crown Aegon. Before Aegon and the lords who answered his summon arrived at Dragonstone, Aegon's personal officials were already hard at work arranging everything necessary for the grand ceremony. The entire island was under the watchful eyes of warriors from ET, ensuring the security of the surroundings and preventing any unauthorized individuals from entering or leaving. Preparations were made to transform Dragonstone into a suitable venue for such a momentous occasion. People were assigned to clean and beautify the area, ensuring that it would be a fitting setting for the gathering of the lords and the ancient dragon, Bahamut. Since the ceremony was planned to take place in an open area, Bahamut used his magic to guarantee clear weather for the event. The crowning ceremony was meticulously planned, with attention to detail on the placement of the lords, the sequence of events, and adherence to ancient Valyrian traditions. Collaborating with scholars, the officials ensured that the ceremony would be a harmonious blend of Westerosi and Valyrian customs. Accommodations were arranged for the arriving lords and their retinues to ensure their comfort during their stay on Dragonstone. Well-disciplined men, adorned with Targaryen sigils, were present to welcome Aegon and the other lords upon their arrival. The sight of such a capable and well-trained armed force made the lords of Westeros uneasy. As Aegon arrived, he was greeted by the officials who had meticulously planned and executed the arrangements. The welcoming party guided him and the other lords to the castle, where they would prepare for the upcoming crowning ceremony. The anticipation and nervousness among the lords of Westeros continued to build as they stepped into the heart of Dragonstone. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over Dragonstone, Aegon stood at the top of the stone steps, surrounded by the assembled lords of Westeros who had answered his call. The air crackled with anticipation as Bahamut, a colossal dragon with scales as black as obsidian, descended from the skies, eyes glowing with an otherworldly intelligence. Lords of Westeros couldn't believe their eyes as they witnessed the majestic dragon, a creature that dwarfed their imaginations. Bahamut's appearance invoked memories of the legendary Black Dread. With molten gold eyes, the dragon landed gracefully, its massive wings creating a gust of wind that rustled the banners of the gathered houses. A sense of awe washed over the assembly. Bahamut, a dragon king of ancient power, commanded attention. Son of old Valyria, Aegon Targaryen, bearer of the blood of the dragon, stepped forward, ordered Bahamut. Aegon, regally attired in Targaryen garb, approached to receive the crown. The dragon's wings spread wide, casting a shadow over the assembly. Kneel, Aegon Targaryen, before the last of the great dragon kings, and let your destiny be sealed with the flame that courses through your veins, intoned Bahamut. Aegon knelt as Bahamut, regal and majestic, lowered its massive head. Bahamut spoke in a long-forgotten language, words resonating with ancient magic, invoking the blessings of fire and blood upon the rightful heir. Flames danced around Aegon, and a mark appeared on his shoulder, mirroring same one Bahamut given to Jon Snow's. With a regal gesture, Bahamut lowered its massive head, and dragon fire enveloped Aegon, not consuming but embracing him with the essence of ancient power. The flames danced around him, leaving his attire untouched and glowing with an ethereal light. A crown, later known as the Crown of Dragonfire, adorned his head. By the eternal fire, I crown thee, Aegon Targaryen, sixth of his name, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm, proclaimed Bahamut. Aegon rose, facing the assembled lords of Westeros. They knelt one by one, some out of respect, some out of fear. Aegon, now crowned, declared his oath. I swear, by the fire of dragons and the blood of old Valyria, to rule with justice and wisdom. In the presence of Bahamut, the Dragon King, I make this solemn oath, and may the gods bear witness." As Aegon's words echoed across Dragonstone, Bahamut and the younger dragons roared, shaking the foundations of the island, marking the beginning of a new era. Attention, so here's the deal, the whole Aegon on fire situation is just a magical illusion, like a really intense light show at a wizard's concert. But, and this is crucial, if you don't fork over those power stones, get ready for a flaming surprise party. Picture yourself as the unexpected guest of honor at the hottest bash in town, and I mean that literally. So, in the wise words of a fire-breathing dragon comedian, pay up or roast marshmallows, my friend, fire gemstone. Chapter 53. After Aegon's crowning, Bahamut, with a mighty flap of his wings, soared into the sky with a resounding roar, heading towards Dragonmont to rest. The lords of Westeros, still kneeling before Aegon, couldn't help stealing glances at the colossal dragon that overshadowed them. Stark-youths and other young nobles couldn't tear their eyes away from the awe-inspiring sight. As Bahamut left, some lords who harbored second thoughts about their allegiance silently slipped away, avoiding any confrontation. Meanwhile, Olenna, still kneeling, spoke to Marjorie, who was fixated on Bahamut's departure. "My dear," Olenna began, "do you wish to be queen?" Marjorie remained silent, her gaze fixed on Aegon, who was also watching Bahamut leave. Olenna continued, "Then make the dragon yours. The dragon with real power." Marjorie's contemplative silence spoke volumes as Olenna addressed Aegon as the true source of power. After Bahamut left, the ceremony transitioned into a grand banquet. Attendees indulged in wines from ET and the region's specialties. Musicians played lively tunes, inspiring young lords and ladies to dance. In the quiet moments following Aegon's coronation banquet, Bahamut's ancient eyes revealed a hidden melancholy as he observed the festivities through the eyes of the young king. The grandeur of the celebration, the joyous laughter, and the rhythmic melodies only accentuated Bahamut's solitude. For all his power and majesty, the dragon was denied the simple pleasures of revelry and camaraderie that the human lords and ladies enjoyed. But Bahamut, driven by an unspoken desire, decided to delve into the mysteries of the arcane that he had discovered among the ruins of ET. He sought a magic that could transcend the limitations of his draconic existence. Alone in the cavernous depths of Dragonmont, Bahamut began his experiment. Using his knowledge of magical energies and the principles he had observed throughout his existence as a dragon, he cautiously channeled the ancient magic into his being. The cavern echoed with the resonance of otherworldly energies as Bahamut delved into the arcane, seeking a transformation beyond the ordinary. In a blend of mystical incantations and the raw power of ancient magic, Bahamut's form began to shift. His body shimmered with ethereal energies as the arcane forces intertwined with his draconic essence. The transformation was not instantaneous, it was a gradual process, an evolution spurred by the fusion of magic and innate dragon biology. As the arcane energy surged through his massive form, Bahamut's wings expanded, becoming even grander and more majestic. His 6 muscular limbs, reminiscent of the mighty dragons of ancient lore, replaced the former 4-limbed structure. The cavern itself seemed to resonate with the magical symphony, responding to the ancient being's metamorphosis. In scientific terms, the magical infusion triggered a catalytic change in Bahamut's genetic structure, enhancing the expression of dormant draconic traits. The intricate dance of arcane forces rewrote the very fabric of his being, granting him a new form, one that encapsulated the true essence of a mythical dragon. Amidst the shimmering energies, Bahamut emerged as a true dragon, embodying the culmination of his ancient existence. The cavern bore witness to the transformation, the rebirth of a legendary being, shaped by magic and the unwavering desire to explore realms beyond the ordinary. As the last echoes of the magical symphony faded, Bahamut spread his magnificent wings, casting a shadow that spoke of his newfound transcendence. The solemn sadness that once lingered in his eyes was replaced by a glimmer of fulfillment. As Aegon reveled in the banquet hall, a sudden shift in the atmosphere caught his attention. The sorcerer by his side also sensed the anomaly, a surge of magical energy that seemed to ripple through the very fabric of the world. Excusing himself from the festivities, Aegon hurried outside, guided by an unexplainable intuition. Beneath the night sky, Dragonstone was bathed in an otherworldly glow. The stars were obscured by a crimson aurora that painted the heavens with hues of red, as if the sky itself had caught fire. Aegon marveled at the spectacle, an awe-inspiring display of magic that left him both perplexed and intrigued. Meanwhile, the other dragons in Dragonmont sensed the transformation occurring within their ancient kin. The skyward gaze of Sapphire, Igneel, and Dieval spoke of a shared awareness, a recognition of a bloodline transformed. Their wings folded, and they laid down in a symbolic acknowledgement of Bahamut's ascendancy. In the cavernous depths of Dragonmont, Bahamut emerged as a true dragon. The magical infusion had transformed him into a majestic creature, and the sky responded in kind, reflecting the surge of ancient power coursing through his veins. The very air seemed to crackle with enchantment, and the red aurora bore witness to Bahamut's newfound form. Chapter 54, Bonus Chap, Filler, Can Skip. Bahamut's colossal form shifted and morphed, the ancient dragon undergoing a profound transformation under the crimson aurora. His once two-legged stance gave way to 6 powerful limbs, a momentary struggle with balance as the newfound limbs adjusted to their existence. Bahamut navigated his metamorphosis with a regal determination. His wings, once grand, now expanded into a size that defied his imagination. The night air seemed to tremble as these colossal wings stretched wide, embracing the essence of his newfound form. Bahamut's eyes, glowing with molten gold, surveyed the changes in his own physique, a body now more reminiscent of the majestic dragons of fantasy he knew of. A momentary unease gripped Bahamut as he flexed his newfound limbs, the sensation akin to a dragon testing its wings for the first time. Yet, in the face of uncertainty, the ancient dragon found his equilibrium. Standing tall on his 4 mighty limbs, Bahamut surveyed the Dragonmont with a newfound majesty. His body, once sinewy and agile, had transformed into a muscular marvel, each limb exuding a strength that spoke of ancient power. Bahamut marveled at this metamorphosis, his tail, leaner yet stronger, swaying with an otherworldly grace behind him. The crimson aurora painted his form with an ethereal glow, turning scales as black as obsidian into a spectacle of magical radiance. Bahamut's senses, sharpened to a level beyond comprehension, could now feel the pulse of magic that coursed through Dragonstone. The very air around him thrummed with the presence of elemental forces, and Bahamut could perceive the currents of magic with an unprecedented clarity. As the Dragon King stood beneath the red-streaked sky, he couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. The echoes of ancient magic whispered through his transformed being, and Bahamut roared, a proclamation to the world that he had evolved into a true dragon, a force of nature reborn. Under the red-streaked sky of Dragonstone, the lords of Westeros and the men who served under Bahamut stood in stunned silence. The awe-inspiring sight above them unfolded like a celestial tapestry, an event beyond the scope of their understanding. The crimson aurora that painted the heavens, these were phenomena that defied the natural order. The lords and their retinues, whose knowledge was rooted in the tangible world of politics and war, found themselves faced with a force beyond their reckoning. The red comet, a mere whisper of the magical currents now cascading across the skies, seemed a pale prelude to the grandeur before them. Aegon, flanked by his sorcerer advisor, sought to understand the unfolding spectacle. He yearned to approach Bahamut, to unravel the mysteries. The sorcerer, with furrowed brows, attempted to grasp the arcane energies at play but found himself bewildered by the sheer magnitude of the unfolding magical symphony. Yet, from the far reaches of the world, beyond the wall, in the mysterious lands of Sort Oyos, and within the hidden recesses of the Shadowlands, whispers echoed. Those who dwelled in the deep mountains and desolate landscapes became aware of the cosmic shifts. In the face of this cosmic revelation, a simple sentence resonated in their collective consciousness: a new player has come. Chapter 55, Chapter 55. As the celestial display continued to unfold in the sky, a thunderous roar echoed from the direction of Dragonmont, reaching the ears of Aegon and those gathered on Dragonstone. Aegon, caught in the thrall of curiosity, turned his gaze toward the source of the defining roar. His heart quickened, and an unspoken connection tugged at his senses. Is that Pop? The resonating roar seemed both familiar and alien, a paradox that piqued his curiosity. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was not Bahamut but something more powerful, something beyond the scope of his understanding. Driven by the need to satisfy his curiosity, Aegon hurriedly made his way toward Dragonmont, accompanied by his men. Unbeknownst to him, a silent observer, Arya Stark, the ever-curious troublemaker of House Stark, clandestinely trailed behind. Arya, with her sharp eyes and a relentless thirst for knowledge, sensed that Aegon might hold the key to understanding the celestial event. Amidst Aegon and his companions approaching Dragonmont, an unexpected guest lurked in the shadows. As Bahamut emerged from Dragonmont, a keen sense alerted him to a watchful presence, and he turned to find a raven, its gaze fixed upon him from a distance. In a voice that resonated with power, Bahamut addressed the winged observer. "You have disappointed me, Blue Draven," he declared, the intensity of his gaze revealing his disapproval. Suddenly, Bahamut's eyes glowed, and with a forceful command, he drew Bloodraven's consciousness into his own. Within the depths of darkness, Bloodraven found himself engulfed, unable to discern his surroundings. A dim light emerged, and golden eyes pierced through the obscurity. Before he could fathom the situation, a powerful voice echoed, "I hope we meet again, three-eyed raven." Bloodraven struggled to catch his breath as he returned to the reality of his physical form, perched on a tree branch. His abrupt return caught the attention of the children of the forest, who sensed the disturbance. Meanwhile, Bahamut, with a flicker of flame, burned away the raven that Bloodraven had employed for his spying endeavors. As the raven turned to ash, the echoes of ancient magic lingered in Bahamut's mind, whispering secrets and mysteries that had long been buried. For now Bahamut's attention shifted from the whispers of ancient magic to the approaching figures. Aegon, among them, drew Bahamut's focus as he walked purposefully, leaving the other dragons in submissive acknowledgement of Bahamut's elevated bloodline. With a powerful presence that demanded recognition, Bahamut ascended into the sky. The newfound wingspan and altered proportions initially posed a challenge to his flight, but the majestic dragon swiftly adapted. As Bahamut soared through the heavens, he sensed a surge in speed, a newfound swiftness unaided by external magic. As Aegon and his men approached Dragonmont, a sudden sense of unease gripped him as he detected a shadowy figure in the distance. Aegon, mistaking Bahamut's transformed appearance, instinctively shouted for everyone to run, his fear overpowering rational thought. Unfazed by Aegon's reaction, Bahamut continued his descent, landing with a resounding thud that echoed through the air. Aegon, halting his retreat, stared wide-eyed at the majestic creature before him, unable to reconcile the changed form with the familiar dragon he knew. With a voice that resonated with power, Bahamut called out to Aegon, acknowledging his presence. Aegon cautiously approached Bahamut, his eyes scrutinizing the dragon's altered form. Doubt clouded his mind as he questioned the reality before him. Bahamut, understanding Aegon's confusion, simply replied, "I am." The revelation of Bahamut's transformation left Aegon astounded, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the change. As Aegon gathered the courage to voice his queries, Bahamut, in his newfound form, explained, "This is how a true dragon looks like." Aegon, grappling with the surreal sight before him, found himself lost in a whirlwind of disbelief. His questions about Bahamut's altered appearance lingered, prompting the ancient dragon to provide an answer. Before Aegon could delve further into his inquiries, Bahamut's attention shifted, sensing another presence nearby. In a calm yet authoritative tone, he addressed the hidden Stark pup, Arya. "Why are you hiding, Stark pup?" Bahamut's words echoed towards a large stone, and after a moment of silence, Arya Stark emerged, her eyes revealing a mix of fear and astonishment at the sight of Bahamut in his new form. Bahamut approached Arya Stark, who instinctively took a step back, only to find herself unable to move. Sweat dripped down her face as the dragon's immense head loomed closer. "Stark didn't disappoint me," Bahamut declared, his voice resonating with an otherworldly power. Turning his attention to Aegon and his men, Bahamut instructed, "Take her back to the castle. And don't be mad with her." With those words, Bahamut ascended into the sky, leaving Arya on the ground, staring in the direction of the departing dragon. Aegon, bewildered and forgetting his initial questions, nodded to his men, signaling to take Arya back to the castle. As they departed, Arya's gaze remained fixed on the sky, where the silhouette of Bahamut disappeared. Bahamut, after his transformation, felt a surge of hunger that couldn't wait. Ignoring the need for conversation, he set off to hunt, his destination where Aegon had arranged cattle for him. Without hesitation, he unleashed his fiery breath upon the restrained beasts, turning them to smoldering snacks. Sated, Bahamut returned to Dragonmont, his massive form reclining in exhaustion. The magic he'd unleashed earlier had drained him completely. As morning approached, Aegon sought answers, but Bahamut's responses were vague, frustrating Aegon. Unwilling to press further, Aegon shifted the conversation to the affairs of the lords of Westeros. Attention, everyone. The pace of the story will slow down as we delve into more intricate details in the upcoming chapters. By the next 10 to 12 chapters, get ready to witness Bahamut unleashing havoc on his new formidable adversary, not the Night King. Additionally, a new enemy will be unveiled, one who is not only aware of Bahamut's presence but also extends beyond the wall, surpassing Night King. As mentioned before, on Webnovel, each chapter is released on Fridays and Mondays, while on Patreon, it drops on Sundays. However, for this week, I'll be releasing 3 chapters alongside web novel, and the remaining 2 chapters will be available on Sunday. Chapter 56. The Bahamut spoke with an authority that left no room for argument. I will deal with the remains of Lannister, while you gather men and take down his loyalists one by one. Make sure traces of Lannister blood won't get away, he commanded. With those instructions, Bahamut rose, invoking magic that unleashed a blinding light. Aegon shielded his eyes, unable to witness the mystical events unfolding before him. When the radiance faded, Aegon opened his eyes to a perplexing sight. A naked man stood in place of the mighty dragon. Confusion etched across Aegon's face. He questioned the stranger, "Who are you?" The man met Aegon's gaze with a familiar intensity and uttered a single word, "Bahamut." Aegon's mind reeled, grappling with the incongruity of the situation. He had expected a dragon, not a naked man claiming to be Bahamut. Doubt clouded his perception, and he muttered to himself, "Am I dreaming?" Approaching Aegon with purpose, the man who called himself Bahamut dismissed the notion, saying, "No, you are not. It's just I never showed you my human form. What really I am." Aegon struggled to reconcile this new reality with the dragon he knew. As Aegon processed the surreal encounter, he couldn't help but question further, "Pop, why do I feel like you're behaving more like a human?" Bahamut, now stretching his arms casually, dismissed the observation with a nonchalant response, "You are just imagining. Now, do what I said." Aegon, torn between awe and bewilderment, hesitated before relenting. "Enough," Bahamut declared, a hint of impatience in his tone. "At least go and bring me a dress to cover my A****. Aegon, still grappling with the strangeness of the situation, nodded and moved to fulfill the request. When Bahamut's transformation into a true dragon, a cascade of unfamiliar memories and knowledge flooded his consciousness. Each passing day unveiled new facets of his existence, including the extraordinary ability to shape-shift. However, amidst the newfound awareness, a perplexing question lingered in Bahamut's mind: what had he been before becoming a dragon? A wyvern, perhaps. The uncertainty gnawed at him, compelling Bahamut to seek answers. With a resolve to uncover the origin of Valyrian dragons, Bahamut contemplated a journey to Valyria. Yet, for the time being, he set aside these bewildering thoughts, placing them on hold. Meanwhile, accompanied by male servants, Aegon approached the dragon, who is naked. The servants, perplexed by the sight of their young king conversing with a naked man, couldn't help but speculate about the nature of their relationship, jumping to assumptions that Aegon might be homosexual. With a selection of dresses in hand, Bahamut chose a sleek black dress that suited his newfound form. Calling the hesitant servants closer, he decided to take a preventive measure. A wave of magic emanated from Bahamut, momentarily blanking the servants' minds. He erased their recent memories to ensure that no rumors or misconceptions would arise about him and Aegon. With a flick of his hand, Bahamut signaled the departing servants to leave the entrance of Dragonmont. Aegon, giving a nod of approval, watched as the bewildered servants left, their minds momentarily clouded by the dragon's magic. Alone in the Dragonmont entrance with Aegon, Bahamut turned his attention to the reflection he conjured using his mystical abilities. "I'm good," he remarked, assessing the changes he had made to his appearance. Golden eyes, black hair, a flawless complexion, and pale skin formed a striking image. However, Bahamut, in a moment of contemplation, decided to refine his appearance further. With a subtle adjustment, he changed his hair, transforming it into a silver-white hue reminiscent of Valyrian beauty. Aegon observed the transformation in silence, witnessing the dragon shaping his form to meet a new standard of splendor. Satisfied with the outcome, Bahamut shifted his gaze to Aegon. "Aegon, make me your hand for now," he requested. Aegon, momentarily taken aback, blinked in surprise before responding with a simple "okay." Without waiting for Aegon to approach, Bahamut moved gracefully towards the castle, his newly transformed presence radiating confidence. Aegon, realizing the abruptness of the situation, called out, "Wait," seeking clarity in the unfolding events. The hall buzzed with anticipation as Aegon, flanked by his guards, entered to meet the waiting lords of Westeros. Their purpose here, the crown ceremony, had concluded, and the lords were eager to return to their lands. A sense of urgency lingered in the air, and they had gathered to seek the young king's presence before departing. As Aegon took his seat in the ancestral throne, the attention of many was drawn to the enigmatic figure at his side, Bahamut. With golden eyes and silver hair that mirrored the young king's own features, Bahamut exuded an otherworldly presence that left onlookers both intrigued and perplexed. Unbeknownst to them, the dragon that had once struck fear into their hearts now stood beside Aegon, shrouded in the guise of a man. Seated in his ancestral seat, Aegon acknowledged the gathered lords. "My lords, I appreciate your presence here." "What brings you at this moment?" he inquired. Lord Tarly stepped forward, a stern expression on his face. "Your Grace, we've come to discuss matters of the realm and to seek your guidance before we return to our lands. The crown ceremony was a grand affair, but our duties await us." Aegon nodded, acknowledging their concerns. "Speak, my lords. I am here to listen and guide as the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms." Another lord, bolder than the rest, broached the sensitive topic. "Your Grace, we understand the need for celebration, but the matter of House Lannister still lingers. How do you propose we handle the remnants of their influence?" Aegon, exchanging a brief glance with Bahamut, addressed the lords. "The remains of House Lannister will be dealt with. I have appointed a trusted advisor to oversee this task. Each of you will play a vital role in dismantling their loyalists and ensuring that traces of Lannister blood do not taint the realm any further." Bahamut, standing tall at Aegon's side, radiated an air of authority that did not escape the notice of the lords. The same dragon who had issued the command earlier now stood as a silent sentinel, ready to enforce the young king's will. The lords, unaware of the true nature of the being beside Aegon, exchanged glances. One of them voiced their concerns. "Your Grace, who is this advisor you speak of? And how shall we coordinate this effort to purge the remnants of House Lannister?" Aegon, with a glance at Bahamut, spoke decisively. "My lords, meet my hand, Bahamut. He shall guide you in this endeavor, and together we will cleanse the realm of the lingering shadows of enemies. Trust in his wisdom and authority as you would in mine." The lords, though puzzled by the mysterious advisor, nodded in agreement, ready to carry out the young king's directives. Little did they know that the dragon of legend, now shrouded in human form, would play a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of the Seven Kingdoms. Chapter 57. In the Grand Hall, the lords of Westeros approached Bahamut, their curiosity evident as they congratulated him on being named Hand of the King. Whispers circulated about his mysterious origins, with speculations ranging from him being a Targaryen bastard to a Valyrian origin. Bahamut, reveling in the intrigue, maintained the facade of a family friend of the Targaryens, keeping his true identity as a dragon hidden for the sake of amusement. As Bahamut strolled among the lords, he decided to set his plans in motion. Addressing Renly Baratheon and Mace Tyrell, he instructed them to gather their banner men and dismantle the forces loyal to House Lannister. He subtly hinted at his own plan to take down Casterly Rock, leaving the southern lords unaware that he intended to do so alone, as a dragon. Turning his attention to the north, Bahamut approached Eddard Stark, where a distinct chill permeated the atmosphere. Northerners, unaccustomed to the political subtleties of the south, showed a more reserved demeanor. The northern lords acknowledged the king's hand with a nod, a silent gesture of respect. Bahamut reciprocated with a nod of his own, noting the difference in reception between the northerners and their counterparts in the south. As Bahamut engaged in conversation with Eddard Stark, but Ned couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity. Though Bahamut's voice might have lost some of its majestic quality, the aura surrounding him remained undiminished. Ned Stark, despite his disbelief, recognized the presence before him as the dragon that had once judged him months ago. In a hushed whisper only audible to Ned, Bahamut revealed, "Keep it a secret for now, what I am." Ned's eyes widened in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the dragon with the current reality. Catelyn, sensing her husband's inner turmoil, inquired, "What's wrong, my love?" Ned, ever stoic, dismissed it with a made-up smile, a strange sight for someone known for his stern expressions. Bahamut, offering a bow to Catelyn, addressed Eddard, "Lord Stark, I would like to discuss the marriage proposal between King Aegon and Lady Sansa, as we spoke of last time." While Catelyn's excitement for her daughter's potential queenship had waned, her curiosity about how Ned knew the current hand of the king lingered. With a regretful expression, Eddard replied, "Forgive me, Lord Bahamut. I need more time. I've made a mistake before, and I don't wish to repeat it with my daughter." Bahamut accepted the response with understanding, cautioning Ned that the proposal might not be on hold indefinitely if a suitable candidate emerged. Eddard nodded in acknowledgement, and as Bahamut turned to leave, his eyes met Arya's curious gaze. With a mysterious glint in his eyes, Bahamut moved away to engage with other lords. Then Bahamut, noting Olenna Tyrell's shrewd gaze upon him, decided to approach the Queen of Thorns. She sat among the Reach's delegation, her sharp wit unmistakable even from a distance. As he neared, Olenna greeted him with a hint of sarcasm. "Greetings, Lord Hand." Bahamut, undeterred, responded with a nod, playing along with her tone. "Greetings, Lady Olenna. Or should I say, Queen of the Thorns," he quipped. Olenna let out a feigned laugh, her eyes glinting with a mischievous spark. "Oh, I do like a man with a sense of humor. Quite rare these days." Bahamut, with a wry smile, retorted, "Humor is a valuable commodity, especially in the political arena. Keeps things interesting." Olenna, known for her sharp wit, responded with a fake chuckle. "Oh, Lord Hand, you do have a way with words." Bahamut, not one to back down, leaned in slightly, his golden eyes locking with Olenna's shrewd gaze. "Well, Lady Olenna, words can be as powerful as dragons, don't you think?" Olenna's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Indeed, Lord Hand. But unlike dragons, words don't spit fire." Bahamut, maintaining his composure, added, "True, but they can spark revolutions, alliances, and, in some cases, wars. Just like the subtle influence of House Tyrell." Olenna raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting that the Tyrells played a subtle game, Lord Hand?" Bahamut's tone turned more serious. "I'm suggesting that some houses chose wisely during the fall of the Targaryens. House Tyrell, for instance, decided not to commit its forces, a move that might have spared them from the ravages of war." Olenna, never one to be easily swayed, retorted, "Perhaps, Lord Hand. But the Tyrells have always played a careful game. We know when to act and when to watch." Bahamut, however, issued a caution. "Unlike other lords, I don't remember Tyrells ruling before the dragons conquered Westeros. What were they then, stewards? If dragons could elevate them, they can also bring them low. Am I right, Olenna?" A moment of tension hung in the air as Bahamut's words sank in. Olenna, known for her sharp tongue, met his gaze with a shrewd glint in her eyes. "You have a point, Lord Hand. But as you said, I'm just a humble old woman, enjoying the spectacle. What harm could an old rose do?" Bahamut, maintaining his calm demeanor, issued a subtle warning. "Harm, Lady Olenna, is often a matter of perspective. And in the Game of Thrones, perspectives can change swiftly. Be mindful not to underestimate the power of dragons, or the consequences that may follow." Olenna, undeterred, leaned back in her seat. "A fascinating perspective, Lord Hand. But remember, the roses of House Tyrell have thorns." Bahamut, leaving her with a parting thought, remarked, "Indeed, Lady Olenna. But even thorns can be plucked." Bahamut, shifting his tone, smiled and said, "Lady Olenna. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must attend to other matters. Farewell." As Bahamut took his leave, Olenna, and her granddaughter Marjorie, watched him with newfound curiosity. Chapter 58. As Bahamut engaged in courteous exchanges with the various lords gathered in the hall, he keenly sensed an undercurrent of discontent. The lords, used to the intricacies of Westerosi politics, harbored a silent displeasure at the prospect of an outsider assuming the esteemed position of the Hand of the King. Their disapproval lingered beneath the surface, hidden behind polite words and forced smiles. Undeterred, Bahamut continued his interactions with each lord, addressing both significant and less prominent figures in the realm. With the pleasantries concluded, Bahamut retreated to the room Aegon had arranged for him within the walls of Dragonstone. Despite his dragon's instinct to greedily embrace sleep, a sense of discomfort lingered as he lay on the bed. Restlessness gnawed at him, prompting him to abandon the confines of the room. The night outside Dragonstone Castle offered a serene escape. Bahamut, deep in contemplation, strolled along the castle walls, gazing out toward the peaceful expanse of the narrow sea. Thoughts of Rhaenys and her dragon. For months had passed since Rhaenys, at Bahamut's request, set sail across the narrow sea to bring her aunt, Daenerys Targaryen, back to Westeros. Bahamut, who had come to see Aegon and Rhaenys as family, couldn't help but feel a growing sense of worry during her prolonged absence. Meanwhile, Rhaenys, accompanied by her husband and her dragon, journeyed through Essos. Their ship sailed smoothly between Exile and New Guise, steadily progressing toward their destination. The voyage, initiated from King's Landing, had been marked by 6 days of favorable weather, swiftly bringing them to Pentos. From Pentos, Rhaenys took flight on her dragon, soaring above the Essos landscape with her husband by her side. Their destination, Volantis. The journey took them 12 days, a testament to the swiftness and grace of their dragon companion. In Volantis, they secured passage on a ship bound for Qarth, guided by the aid of merchants familiar with the seas of Essos. Unlike Daenerys, who faced constant threats due to her initial vulnerability, Rhaenys encountered no ill intentions along her journey. Her feats in Astapor had solidified her standing across Essos, serving as a shield against those with malicious designs. Still, they were only halfway through their journey, and if calculations held, Daenerys might reach Qarth before Rhaenys. The next morning arrived, and the lords of Westeros began their preparations for departure, eager to return to their respective lands. However, the absence of the hand of the king, Bahamut, during their farewells did not go unnoticed. Though none openly expressed their discontent, a subtle dissatisfaction lingered among the lords. Meanwhile, Bahamut delved into his magical abilities, honing his skills with a finesse that spoke of mastery. Unlike in the past, changing the weather now required only a fraction of the magical effort. As the lords bid their farewells, Bahamut immersed himself in the intricate dance of his capabilities, weaving the very fabric of the atmosphere with his magic. Eventually, weary of these exercises, Bahamut ascended from his seat and strolled outside the castle. His steps led him to the precipice, where he leaped gracefully into the air. In mid-air, he transformed into the mighty dragon that was Bahamut, with scales reflecting the sunlight. With a powerful flap of his wings and a resonant roar, Bahamut soared into the vast sky. This time, his destination was Essos. With Tyrell and Baratheon mustering forces to deal with Lannister loyalists, Bahamut had a different mission in mind. His target, the enigmatic Shrouded Lord, a mysterious figure residing in the River Sorrow. The Shrouded Lord was infamous for granting the Grey Kiss, a deadly affliction that left its victims lifeless. As Bahamut soared over the expanse of the narrow sea, his thoughts lingered on the mysterious being he sought to confront. The Shrouded Lord's identity remained shrouded in secrecy, his motives unclear. Some believed him to be a cursed prince, while others whispered of darker origins. The River Sorrow, with its haunted waters and ominous reputation, concealed the secrets of the Shrouded Lord. Throughout his travels, Bahamut had witnessed the agonies of those touched by grayscale. While he possessed a magical cure, he understood the painful toll it took on those seeking recovery. The legends foretold that by eliminating all existing stone men and confronting the Shrouded Lord, the spread of grayscale could be halted. Yet, beneath this noble mission lingered a poignant truth. As a real dragon, Bahamut pondered the legacy he would leave behind. Would the tales of his triumph over the curse become part of the future legends? In the quiet night over Pentos, Bahamut soared on silent wings, a colossal silhouette unseen by the city below. In just one day, he reached the city, a swift journey that escaped the notice of the unsuspecting inhabitants. Continuing his flight, Bahamut made his way to the Velvet Hills, tracing the meandering path of the Little Rhoyne. With the wise counsel of his trusted advisor, the old general, who now acted as the hand of the king in Bahamut's stead, the dragon found no need to linger in King's Landing. The forces assembled to deal with the Westerland nobilities were in motion, a plan set in motion before his departure. The journey continued as Bahamut followed the river, drawing nearer to Dagger Lake, a body of water not far from the ancient city of Croyane, now known as the Sorrows. The landscape unfolded beneath him, a canvas painted with moonlit rivers and the mysteries that awaited him in the heart of Essos. Chapter 59. In the vast history of A Song of Ice and Fire, the River Rhoyne stands as a once great river filled with tales of legends and ancient civilizations. However, today, it is a silent witness to the ruins of Rhoynar city shattered by the might of the Valyrians. The conflict between the Valyrians and the Rhoynar people began when the Valyrians killed an old man, but not just any old man, it was a giant turtle, a sacred creature to the Rhoynar and believed to be the consort of their god. This tragic event ignited a war, a clash between two civilizations with different elemental magical powers. The Valyrians, masters of fire magic, clashed with the Rhoynar, who wielded water magic. Legends tell of an ancient long night, during which the River Rhoyne froze. According to myth, a hero convinced the children of Mother Rhoyne, the gods within the river, to sing a song that brought back the sun. Whether truth or myth, the long night remains a significant disruption, a force capable of unsettling the balance between day and night, life and death. The Rhoynar, in their lore, were known for their unique connection with turtles. They revered these creatures and even rode on their backs, with some turtles being large enough to bear a person. This bonding extended to their magical practices, with turtles considered the source of their water magic. Just as the Valyrians rode dragons, the Rhoynar rode turtles, exemplifying the magical bond between humans and animals. However, the Rhoynar's peaceful coexistence with nature took a turn when they found themselves at odds with the expansionist Valyrian Empire. Valyria sought dominance over the entirety of Essos, leading to a war that would forever alter the course of the River Rhoyne and the fate of its people. In the final, fateful clash, Garin the Great, leader of the Rhoynar, led a massive army of 250,000 against the mighty Valyrian freehold. Initially, the Rhoynar, with their water magic, managed to triumph over Valyria's dragons and armies. But, as the war unfolded, the sheer might of Valyria proved overwhelming. Despite the initial victories, the Rhoynar couldn't endure the full force of the Valyrian freehold. Garin the Great, captured alive, bore witness to the suffering of his people. Valyrians, including the Volantents, showed no mercy, putting Garin's warriors to the sword. The great harbor of Wantes turned red with the blood of the fallen. The victorious Valyrians then turned north, savagely sacking Sar Mel before advancing on Croyane, the very city led by Prince Garin. Garin, held in a golden cage by the Dragon Lords, was forced to watch as his city crumbled. The cage was hung from the walls of Croyane, a cruel spectacle for the prince. Locked in his cage, Garin called upon Mother Rhoyne, entreating her to avenge her children. In a final act of sacrifice, Garin and his loyalists, imprisoned and facing the impending doom, transformed into stones. Their collective curse reverberated, turning the Valyrians to stone in death rather than becoming the dreaded stonemen. That night, the Rhoyne unleashed a flood unlike any in living memory. A thick fog descended, carrying with it a deadly disease. Valyrian conquerors began to succumb to grayscale, a fate they had inflicted upon so many others. After the devastating Second Spice War, where all seemed lost and the River Rhoyne became a graveyard for many, a mysterious figure known as the Shrouded Lord emerged. This enigmatic being was said to grant a boon to any man who could make him laugh, hinting at a consciousness beyond that of mindless stonemen. There was a tale that linked the Shrouded Lord to the Prince of Croyane. Many believed that Garin, the valiant leader who led his people in the final battle, became the Shrouded Lord. But how could Garin, who had turned into a stoneman and found his watery grave, transform into this mysterious figure? The answer lay in the arrival of a mysterious woman with an alluring charm, adorned with white hair and piercing blue eyes. This seductive figure approached the stoneman statue of Garin, sealed in his watery resting place. With lips as cold as ice, she kissed the stoneman. In that chilling moment, the impossible occurred. Garin, once a stoneman, transformed into a half-corpse, an undead figure with the ability to command other undead stonemen. Garin had become the Shrouded Lord, an entity who held dominion over the undead along the River Rhoyne. Yet, the identity of the great woman with the power to resurrect Garin and grant him a new existence as the Shrouded Lord remained shrouded in mystery. The woman who bestowed new life upon Garin, transforming him into the Shrouded Lord, revealed herself as the Night Queen, also known as the Corpse Queen. Her origins traced back to the time of the Long Night, a period shrouded in darkness and ancient legends. Chapter 59.5. In the ancient tales of the Long Night, there was no Night Queen beside the Night King. Maybe others doesn't even have a ruler, and the Night King himself is more of a legend, akin to Lon the Clever, and Brandon the Builder was considered a figure of lore, unlikely to have survived through the ages. But the Night Queen's tale is different, and her origin lies in the Shadowlands. She is no ordinary woman but Nissa the Ice Priestess, the wife of Azor Ahai, the one destined to wield the powerful sword, Lightbringer. In a desperate bid to defeat the darkness of the Great Other, Azor Ahai sacrificed Nissa by plunging the sword into her heart. However, instead of meeting her demise, she somehow underwent a transformative process, becoming a magical being infused with the icy essence. Much like Melisandre, a wielder of fire magic, Nissa became an entity of ice magic. Her powers were mysterious, alien, and potentially perilous. Her singular focus revolved around the desire to bring about a second long night, a realm without end, in alignment with the intentions for which she was sacrificed. She became legendary consort of Night's King from the Age of Heroes, earning name Corpse Queen. According to legend, Night's King in the series lived during the Age of Heroes, not long after the Wall was complete. He was a fearless warrior who served as the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. After viewing the white-skinned woman from atop the wall, he chased and loved her. Night's King brought her back to the Night Fort, and after the unholy union, he declared himself king and her his queen. Night's King ruled the Night Fort as his own castle for 13 years. During the dark years of his reign, horrific atrocities were committed, of which tales are still told in the north. It was not until Bran the Breaker, the King of Winter, and Joramun, the King Beyond the Wall, joined forces that Night's King was brought down and the Night's Watch freed. After his fall, when it was discovered that Night's King had been making sacrifices to the others, all records of him were destroyed and his very name was forbidden and forgotten. In truth, Night's King had given his soul and seed to Nissa, the Corpse Queen. She, in turn, birthed adult White Shadows, later known as White Walkers. Unlike Melisandre, her White Shadows remained eternal, sustained by sacrificing Night's Watchmen. Corpse Queen transformed Night's King into an existence purely made of ice, ensuring his presence until her ultimate goal was achieved. As the strength of the Corpse Queen grew beyond the wall, Bran the Breaker, the King of Winter, and Joramun united to force Night's King and Queen beyond the wall. The real power beyond the wall lay with the Corpse Queen, who could traverse the world without resistance from the wall's magic, unlike Night's King. She became an unstoppable force, an existence that defied the magical barriers of the Great Wall. As Bahamut neared the Sorrow, a grey smoke enveloped him, rendering his vision useless. To navigate through the haze, he decided to take on his human form and landed on the riverbank. Determined to explore the ruins of Sorrows, he started walking, aware of the shadows closing in on him. Undead stonemen emerged from the mist, their eerie screams echoing through the air. With a swift conjuration of fire, Bahamut thwarted their advance, incinerating the approaching shadows. However, their numbers multiplied, creating a relentless horde. To maintain a safe distance, Bahamut ascended into the sky, casting flames down upon the stonemen. The flames scattered, igniting the stone figures and filling the mist with the chilling echoes of their agonizing screams. Undeterred, Bahamut pressed forward, floating towards the Palace of Sorrow, once known as the Palace of Love. The eerie atmosphere of the sorrow and the haunting cries of the stonemen created an unsettling ambience as Bahamut continued his journey through the ancient ruins. Chapter 60. As Bahamut approached the Palace of Sorrow, he noticed unusual movements in the river's mirror, something sizable lurking beneath the water's surface. However, before he could investigate further, he sensed magic emanating from the broken bridges, each one filled with stonemen. Curiosity piqued, Bahamut focused on one particular bridge, where a lone figure stood among the stonemen. The mysterious entity covered his face, revealing only skinny arms with a rocky structure and a staff crowned by a head of blue orb. Intrigued, Bahamut in his human form approached the bridge cautiously. As Bahamut drew near, the figure began floating toward him, posing a question: "Are you here for my gift?" The word gift raised suspicions in Bahamut, confirming that he faced the shrouded Lord of Sorrow. Responding with an air of arrogance, Bahamut declared, "No, I'm here to give you my fiery kiss." In an instant, Bahamut transformed back into his dragon form, unleashing a torrent of flame upon the shrouded lord. As the flames dissipated, the figure remained unscathed, a stream of water glancing around him. Unfazed, the shrouded lord declared, "I won't lose to the blood of a beast again." The shrouded lord, with a flick of his hands, began summoning water from the river, creating a massive wave around Bahamut. Quick on his feet, Bahamut unleashed the full intensity of his flames, attempting to break through the encroaching waves. However, his focus on the shrouded lord caused him to overlook another lurking presence in the river. As Bahamut ventured into the middle of the river, a colossal turtle emerged, snapping its jaws around his leg and dragging him into the depths. Reacting swiftly, Bahamut rained blows upon the undead turtle's shell, cracking it with each strike. In a desperate bid for freedom, Bahamut instinctively bit into the undead creature's neck, severing the grip and escaping. Emerging from the water, Bahamut faced a sudden onslaught as the river turned violent, attempting to bury him beneath its tumultuous waves. Drawing upon his draconic strength, Bahamut unleashed a powerful flap of his wings, cutting through the torrent and rising from the water with a mighty roar. Because of injury, Bahamut, fueled by fury, unleashed his wrath upon everything in his path. Burning down every stoneman he encountered, he relentlessly advanced towards the shrouded lord. The shrouded lord, undeterred, began casting another spell, attempting to counter Bahamut's fiery assault. However, Bahamut, determined and powerful, conjured a tornado of flames around him, nullifying the water-based attacks and weakening the shrouded lord's magic. Realizing the difficulty of taking down Bahamut, the shrouded lord resorted to covering the area in a dense grey mist. In response, Bahamut unleashed a mighty wind and beat his wings fiercely, dispersing the mist. Without hesitation, Bahamut released another torrent of fiery breath upon the shrouded lord, who attempted to resist with magic but succumbed to the unrelenting flames. As the shrouded lord turned to ashes, Bahamut didn't cease his destruction. He continued to unleash flames upon the ruins of sorrow until it was reduced to ashes and debris. The demise of the shrouded lord caused the mist to fade away, turning the undead stoneman back to lifeless ashes. However, Bahamut, weakened by the colossal undead turtle's bite, lost too much blood. Unconscious and falling into the river, Bahamut unintentionally transformed into his human form in the midst of his fiery destruction. When Bahamut regained consciousness, he found himself in an unfamiliar cabin. As he looked around, his gaze met the eyes of a woman in her 30s, with black hair and clear blue eyes. She regarded him with a seductive gaze, and Bahamut, struggling at first, managed to sit up. Curious, he asked, "Who are you?" The woman chuckled and replied, "Shouldn't I be asking you that question?" Bahamut apologized and introduced himself, to which she responded with a smile, "Nissa." As Bahamut focused on his leg injury, he noticed it slowly healing and joining back together. Nissa approached him, but Bahamut instinctively raised his head, sensing danger. Nissa halted and expressed concern, asking if he was okay. Bahamut, feeling strangely defensive, simply responded with a confused "huh." As he continued to heal himself with magic, Nissa observed the rapid recovery without any surprise. Perplexed, Bahamut cautiously inquired, "Why aren't you surprised?" Nissa casually explained, "Because I'm a sorcerer." This revelation piqued Bahamut's interest, but as he stepped outside the cabin, he realized something was amiss. The ship was moving forward, yet there were no sailors in sight. Suspicion growing, Bahamut focused on Nissa, the sorcerer, as he felt the presence of strange magic surrounding them. Chapter 61. Without hesitation, Bahamut unleashed a powerful wave of energy that shook the ship and dispelled the illusion cast upon him during his unconsciousness. As the veil lifted, he revealed the presence of White Walkers surrounding him, ready to attack with icy blades if needed, their allegiance sworn to their mother, Nissa, also known as the Corpse Queen. Nissa, in her true form, turned to Bahamut with a seductive smile as her eyes glowed in blue, her hair turned white, and her skin became pale. Chuckling, she remarked, "As expected, you are interesting. You have too much strength for a beast." Bahamut's eyes shifted into a more primal, beast-like gaze as he prepared for a confrontation. However, Nissa waved her hands, signaling the White Walkers to step back. Approaching Bahamut with a confident stride, she said, "You possess the intelligence of a human while wielding the power of a dragon. I'm curious, what are you?" With a swift move, Bahamut didn't hesitate to seize Nissa by the neck, prompting the White Walkers to issue an icy warning. His transformation began, scales covering his arms, and horns sprouting from his head. Growling, fangs bared, Bahamut demanded, "Who are you?" In response, Nissa showed no sign of struggle, calmly stating, "How are you supposed to know when I'm under your grip?" Bahamut, intrigued, loosened his hold, and she continued, "How about I sing a song of ice and fire before revealing who I am?" Bahamut maintained a steely silence as he glared at Nissa, her words echoing in the air. She taunted, "How much do you know about the Empire of Dawn and their dragon lords?" Unmoved, Bahamut growled, "That won't answer my question." Nissa countered with a cryptic remark, "Yes, it does. Otherwise, you will be preyed by your prey." The air hung heavy with tension as Bahamut regarded her warily. Sensing her formidable magic, he knew instinctively that she possessed strength beyond the shrouded lord and anything he has seen so far. Her chuckle resonated as she continued, "I thought you were a many millennia-old dragon, but it seems that isn't the case. More importantly, you are a new, powerful species acknowledged by the world, unlike me and my love." Bahamut's gaze remained fixed on her, uncertainty gnawing at him. Nissa, reveling in her revelations, responded to Bahamut's mention of the Night's King with laughter. "No, he is just a tool. I'm talking about the hero of the fake legends, Azor Ahai." Bahamut felt a shift in the narrative, realizing that Nissa was unveiling secrets not found in the series. She continued her tale. "It all started with a curious man from the Empire of Dawn, seeking the mysteries of magic in Westeros. Azor Ahai, the legendary hero of the Dawn, fell in love with a hybrid of human and children of the forest. Fleeing to the Empire, tragedy struck when the Emperor, who despised his family, destroyed it upon his return." Nissa went on, recounting a tale of revenge and forbidden magic he learned from his love. She spoke of Azor Ahai's experimentation with forbidden magic to transform himself into an existence beyond mortal limits. He became the first great Fire Other and the subsequent appearance of the Long Night as the world's response to his abomination. White Walkers, created by the children of the forest, contributed to the chaos. And they become too strong because of Long Night making children of forest unable to control them. She further revealed that Azor Ahai, in his eternal quest for power, created his underlings by turning humans into entities of fire magic, waging war against the Empire of Dawn. The conflict raged for 1,000 years until the Empire fell. Realizing that the Long Night would persist until his disappearance, Azor Ahai sacrificed his wife, turning her into a great Other of Ice to restore balance to the world. Her name was Nissa, later becoming the Corpse Queen. Bahamut absorbed this alternative version of history, uncertain of its truth or deception. And Bahamut, having guessed the identity of the Corpse Queen, was approached with a seductive gaze as she proposed, "You are capable of taking down my love and his evil servants. If you help me to take him down, there won't be another Long Night end." Then suddenly with a smile, Bahamut unleashed a powerful burst of fire magic, engulfing the ship entirely. As a dragon, Bahamut ascended into the sky, keeping a watchful eye on the sea below to know the Corpse Queen's presence. However, when he couldn't sense their presence, Bahamut decided to head towards Westeros in the direction indicated by the mark left by Aegon. Once Bahamut had left the area, the Corpse Queen emerged from the sea alone. Beneath her feet, an ice glacier materialized out of nowhere. Speaking to herself, she murmured, "Nothing less expected from a strange lizard. Wait for my gift for you when my little toy turns your dear people into corpses." Bahamut, though skeptical of the Corpse Queen's words, wasn't confident about facing her in the sea unless she was on land. If what she claimed was true, many mysteries, especially those related to the Red God and Azor Ahai, would find answers. Bahamut pondered over the implications, realizing that the strange auras emanating from Red Priests were a result of their slow transformation into brainwashed servants of Azor Ahai. There were still numerous unanswered questions, and Bahamut was determined to uncover the truth behind the mysteries laid out before him. Chapter 62. Within 2 days, Bahamut returned to King's Landing under the cover of night. Choosing to approach Aegon, who was lost in thought on the balcony, Bahamut tapped him on the shoulder, prompting Aegon to instinctively swing his sword before realizing it was Bahamut. Surprised, Aegon inquired, "Pop, where have you been all this time?" Bahamut, instead of answering directly, posed a different question: "How far have our forces reached in dealing with the Lannister forces?" Aegon responded, "Many lords under the Lannisters have surrendered, but some remain defiant. The Old Lion has even hired the Golden Company from Essos." "How many men?" Bahamut inquired. Aegon replied, "More than 10,000. Walking toward the window, Bahamut contemplated the situation. Aegon questioned, "Pop, where are you going now?" Without a direct answer, Bahamut leaped from the window, declaring, "To deal with the Old Lion." Transforming into a dragon midair, Bahamut soared towards Casterly Rock. After finalizing an agreement with the Golden Company and securing additional funds from the Iron Bank to hire more sellswords from Essos, Tywin Lannister turned his attention to preparing for the upcoming battle against Aegon. He commissioned the design and construction of over 30 scorpions, powerful weapons intended to counter dragons, procured from Bravos with a considerable sum of money. In an unexpected turn, Tywin found himself acknowledging his son Tyrion more than ever before. Despite considering Tyrion a burden and a source of humiliation to the family, Tywin couldn't deny a certain paternal sentiment. Tyrion, being the only one of his children present, was now actively supporting Tywin in their family's endeavors. While dealing with the remaining loyal forces, Tyrion played a crucial role while Tywin focused on managing the mercenary forces. Returning to his room to rest, Tywin was taken aback to find a young man reading his documents in his seat. Bewildered, he couldn't fathom how a stranger managed to infiltrate his room, especially considering the tight security at Casterly Rock guarded by both foreign and his own forces. Tywin for some reason felt unable to move back, his body refusing to obey him. Bahamut had already exerted his mental control, rendering Tywin powerless to disobey Bahamut's will, even if he wanted to resist. Bahamut, immersed in reading records about Lannister history, casually remarked, "Tywin Lannister, the puppet master of Westeros. How does it feel when the strings are in the claws of a dragon?" Tywin, initially mistaking Bahamut for Aegon, was swiftly corrected as Bahamut continued, "You are wrong. I'm not Aegon just because I do have Valyrian features. Bahamut, in his dragon-human form, reveled in the drama, finding amusement in Tywin's bewilderment. "Tywin, I must say, your family's history is truly fascinating," he remarked. "A saga of power, betrayal, incest, Kingslayer, and, of course, a lion's share of gold. Reminds me of bedtime stories for dragonlings." Feeling a tinge of boredom, Bahamut exercised his control over Tywin, granting him the ability to speak. With caution, Tywin managed to stammer, "Who are you?" A smirk played on Bahamut's lips as he raised a book, his dragon eyes peering through. The air tightened around Tywin, rendering him motionless. "I hear you're fond of employing mercenaries. Golden Company, is it?" Bahamut inquired, a sinister edge to his voice. Tywin, paralyzed and helpless, couldn't fathom the surreal nature of this encounter. As Bahamut drew closer, he continued his ominous exploration. "Casterly Rock, the mighty fortress of the Lannisters," Bahamut observed, sending shivers down Tywin's spine. "Impressive, I suppose. Although, I can't help but wonder, how does it fare against Dragonfire?" Tywin, still in a state of shock, witnessed Bahamut's gradual approach. With a chilling promise, Bahamut declared, "Tomorrow I will come back again, but as a dragon. Don't even think of running away and fight me full might. If you don't, Lannisters end without a descendant, not even bastards." With those haunting words, he left Tywin in a state of disbelief. As Bahamut departed, Tywin regained control over his body, his legs weakened by the weight of fear. He stared at the direction Bahamut had vanished, unable to comprehend the otherworldly encounter that had just unfolded. While Bahamut's stroll through the castle was an effortless affair. Anyone who attempted to impede his progress found their minds mysteriously blank, including a chance encounter with Tyrion Lannister. Bahamut, not in the mood for conversation, casually remarked, "The men with wisdom but small stature," leaving Tyrion stunned as if he were a mere specter. Unfazed by the feeble attempts to halt him, Bahamut continued his unhurried journey through the castle. Along the way, he discovered the preparations made to counter him, scorpions designed to launch sky attacks. With a disdainful flicker of his power, Bahamut incinerated the scorpions, expressing his displeasure at such nuisances. Choosing to distance himself from the castle and its confrontations, Bahamut opted to spend the night near a quiet village, leaving a trail of confusion and fear in his wake. Chapter 63. As the morning sun heralded the impending clash, Tywin Lannister gathered every available man, hastily preparing for the inevitable confrontation with mysterious being. The mysterious being had demonstrated control over minds and the ability to transform his eyes into those of a beast, leaving Tywin uncertain of what kind of adversary he faced. Determined to face his fate with honor, Tywin readied his forces, aware that this battle might mark the end of the Lannister house. In a desperate attempt to secure some semblance of a future for his lineage, Tywin made arrangements to send his son Tyrion away, hidden in a box across the narrow sea to Pentos. Even as he prepared for battle, Tywin harbored the hope that his descendant might survive the impending conflict, preserving the Lannister legacy. With a heavy heart, Tywin ascended the castle walls, joining his men as they braced for the arrival of Bahamut. His gaze lingered on the horizon, where the sun began its ascent. Simultaneously, Bahamut stirred from his slumber in a rented inn, knowingly approaching the battlefield that would determine the fate of Casterly Rock. While Rhaenys and her husband sailed toward the Strait of Qarth, the bustling city awaited her arrival. The news of her journey, specifically in search of her relative Daenerys Targaryen, had preceded her. The Qartheen were wise enough not to provoke the wrath of dragons, especially considering the recent exploits of the powerful and unpredictable dragon, Bahamut, in E.T. The people of Qarth welcomed Daenerys with warmth, aware that she carried the legacy of dragons. Unbeknownst to Daenerys, her cousin Rhaenys was also present in the city, seeking her out. The Spice King was the one to inform Daenerys about Rhaenys' arrival. Daenerys, despite facing numerous challenges on her journey to Qarth, remained hopeful and somewhat naive. The prospect of meeting someone from her own bloodline, a fellow Targaryen, both excited and made her nervous. She had only heard about them from her deceased brother, and now the opportunity for a real encounter was before her. Rhaenys, on the other hand, was welcomed warmly by the Qartheen, who wisely refrained from displaying their wealth or capabilities in her presence. Some warlocks approached her out of curiosity, but they were swiftly defeated by Rhaenys' formidable abilities. Trained in E.T. under the best sorceresses, she was not only a skilled pyromancer but also a sorceress in her own right. Despite her magical prowess, Rhaenys chose not to bring her dragon along, fearing the possibility of it being poisoned. However, she was confident in her ability to defend herself, both in combat and against magical threats. While Daenerys, adorned in the elegant dress provided by Xaro and Daxos, entered the hall where Rhaenys awaited her, accompanied by Yora and her trusted maids. Rhaenys, engaged in light banter with her husband, teased him about the possibility of her being pregnant during the voyage, finding joy in the idea of becoming a mother. Her heart was set on returning to her brother and Bahamut to share the good news. As Daenerys approached, Rhaenys rose and warmly embraced her, surprising Daenerys with the genuine and affectionate gesture. The two Targaryens exchanged pleasantries and took a moment to catch up. Rhaenys, her eyes filled with a sisterly warmth, finally brought up the topic of returning to Westeros. "Aunt," she began, "I've longed to meet you, and now that we are together, I propose a journey back to our home. Bahamut and my brother await our return. What say you? Shall we embark on this adventure together, as the blood of dragons, and bring prosperity to our family?" Excitement filled Daenerys as they prepared to return back to Westeros. Within 2 days, they boarded a ship from Qarth to King's Landing, laden with the riches and offerings from the city. Daenerys noticed the peculiar respect the Qartheen showed Rhaenys, treating her with an almost royal reverence. Setting sail on their journey, Daenerys witnessed something truly awe-inspiring. Above the ship soared an adult dragon, majestic and powerful. The sight left everyone, including Yora, in stunned amazement. It was the first time Daenerys had laid eyes on a fully grown dragon, and the experience was beyond what she had imagined. The beautiful creature, reminiscent of the moon, filled her with a sense of wonder, and she couldn't help but marvel at the magnificent sight. Little did she know, her own dragons held the potential to become such incredible beings. Chapter 64. Without hesitation, Bahamut unleashed his true form, transforming into a dragon with an imposing roar that seized the attention of both ground and wall. Soldiers on the ground responded by showering the dragon with endless fire arrows, but Bahamut pressed forward, unfazed by the futile attempt. The soldiers couldn't grasp the reality that the dragon before them differed from the stories they had heard. As Bahamut closed in, scorpions hidden within the walls fired arrows in an attempt to catch him off guard. Yet, Bahamut, anticipating the attack, employed wind magic to deflect the approaching scorpion arrows. In swift retaliation, flames cascaded down from the sky onto Casterly Rock. The mercenaries outside the walls, originally tasked with confronting the approaching army, found themselves helpless against the fiery onslaught. Panic set in, and some attempted to flee, only to be met with flames seemingly emerging from thin air, causing agonizing screams. Taking cover amidst the debris, Tywin observed the destruction of everything he had built. Dragon flames burned the castle he had so fiercely defended. His arm seared by the flames, Tywin, wounded and vulnerable, lay on the ground. Despite his weakened state, a glint of defiance remained in his eyes. With a sardonic smile, Tywin spoke his final words: "A lion does not concern itself with the opinion of dragons." The dragon, its fiery breath visible in the cold air, acknowledged the irony of Tywin's statement. In the ensuing moments, flames enveloped Tywin, reducing him to ashes, the last vestiges of a lion's pride extinguished by the overwhelming power of a mythical beast. The next morning, the combined forces of Tyrell and Baratheon, accompanied by the Crimson General and his 20,000-strong army, arrived at Casterly Rock, expecting to find a formidable fortress. To their disbelief, all that remained was debris, evidence of the dragon's destructive power. Mace Tyrell, known for his strategic alliances, now felt the weight of the impending threat from the dragons in King's Landing, making him consider strengthening ties with House Targaryen through marriage. Stannis, ever the staunch and dutiful leader, found himself further in awe of Bahamut's capabilities. The Crimson General, who had served Bahamut faithfully for 6 years, couldn't contain his excitement. Once an enemy defeated by Bahamut, he had chosen loyalty over death, and in return, he only asked for more opportunities for war. Witnessing Bahamut's flames once again, reminiscent of the destruction in E.T., stirred the Crimson General's fervor. Bahamut, having accomplished his mission, decided to return to King's Landing, leaving the remaining tasks to Stannis and the Crimson General. There was no need for him to linger in the aftermath of Casterly Rock. Returning to King's Landing, Bahamut assumed his human form to explore the city streets and assess the living conditions of its residents. Over the time, under Aegon's rule and Bahamut's financial influence, improvements had been made. Aegon had reduced taxes for the common folk, and precautions were taken to transport wildfire to Dragonstone to prevent any accidental or intentional disaster in King's Landing. As Bahamut strolled through the broad streets connecting gates to central squares, he observed various features such as customs houses, merchant stalls, pubs, inns, brothels, mummer shows, and executioner blocks. These squares served as gathering places for the city's residents. Bahamut then made his way to Mummer's Square inside the Old Gate, where a stage was often used by traveling mummer shows and theater troupes. In Mummer's Square, a lively performance was underway, showcasing the glory of Aegon and the great dragon Bahamut. Singers belted out tunes praising their feats. Bahamut found Aegon's method of capturing the commoner's attention intriguing, especially the songs comparing him to Balerion. Amidst the festivities, Bahamut couldn't help but feel a sense of amusement at the songs celebrating his own status. In the realm of mystery, where dragons soar high, a tale unfolds of a dragon reaching for the sky. Bahamut, the mighty, with scales that gleam, stronger than Balerion, in a Targaryen dream. Oh, Bahamut, the true king of the skies, with wings that span, where the sun never dies. Balerion, beware, for your fire's just a spark. In the shadow of Bahamut, you'll be left in the dark. E.T., the ancient land where legends are born. Bahamut's roar echoes, like a raging storm. In the city of the Golden Dawn, he stands tall, a guardian of the East, the strongest of them all. Oh, Bahamut, the true king of the skies, with wings that span, where the sun never dies. Balerion, beware, for your fire's just a spark. In the shadow of Bahamut, you'll be left in the dark. E.T.'s tales whisper of Bahamut's might. His breath, a blaze, a celestial light. Against the black dread, he stands without fear. In the heart of the East, his legend is clear. Balerion, the black dread, with a Targaryen's flame. But Bahamut's power puts the black dread to shame. In the scrolls of E.T., his feats are renowned. A dragon so fierce, in ancient battlegrounds. Oh, Bahamut, the true king of the skies, with wings that span, where the sun never dies. Balerion, beware, for your fire's just a spark. In the shadow of Bahamut, you'll be left in the dark. So here we sing, of the dragon so grand. Bahamut, the mightiest, across the land. In E.T.'s embrace, his legend does grow. A dragon supreme, let his glory show. Chapter 65. Bahamut wandered through the bustling streets of King's Landing, contemplating a momentary escape from the weight of his past life as a virgin. The temptation to enter a brothel and engage in some pleasure tugged at him. However, a sense of caution prevailed within him. Aware that he still lacked control over his strength in human form, he reconsidered the idea, not wanting a moment of excitement to turn into chaos. As Bahamut strolled through the vibrant streets of King's Landing, he sought any signs of religious fervor or movements reminiscent of the faith of the Seven. Surprisingly, there was a notable absence of men preaching against Targaryen rule or engaging in dissent. It occurred to Bahamut that he might have returned to Westeros before the War of the Five Kings, a time when the religious movement, the Sparrows, emerged in response to the suffering caused by the war. Perhaps the humble septon who initially led them was still preaching in the countryside, advocating for equality and aiding the poor while denouncing the excesses of the nobility. Satisfied with the lack of internal struggles within King's Landing, Bahamut returned to the Red Keep as night fell. Late into the night, Bahamut returned to the Red Keep. However, he had no intentions of meeting Aegon. Instead, he planned to visit Cersei and Jaime, who were imprisoned beneath the castle. The dungeons, with their pungent smell, were not a place Bahamut enjoyed, but he pressed on. As Bahamut approached, the guards offered to accompany him, but he declined, insisting on the key instead. Holding a candle lamp to light his way, Bahamut entered the damp and dark dungeon. The air was thick with the stench, making him regret his decision to come. Navigating through the corridors, he finally reached the corner where Cersei and Jaime were chained, unable to get any closer to each other. The dim light revealed the weariness on their faces. Jaime and Cersei, weariness etched on their faces, turned their gaze towards Bahamut as he approached. To them, he was a stranger in this gloomy dungeon, an unexpected visitor. With a hint of amusement in his eyes, Bahamut stood before them, suppressing the urge to laugh, not wanting to appear as a madman delivering grave news. Jaime, Cersei, he began, his tone calm yet carrying an underlying weight. I bring news of your father, Tywin Lannister. Bahamut announced, watching their reactions keenly. A fiery departure, you could say, he added, a touch of sarcasm lingering in his words. Jaime's eyes narrowed, suspicion and grief mingling in his expression. What happened? He demanded, attempting to hide his fear and reluctance to believe that his last hope was gone. Burned alive, Bahamut replied deliberately. A rather fitting end for a man of such stature, wouldn't you agree? He couldn't resist the touch of sarcasm. Cersei, her composure wavering, shot a sharp look at Bahamut. And who are you to bring such news? She asked, defiance in her voice. Call me a messenger, a herald for a change, Bahamut said, a smirk playing on his lips. As for how your father met his fiery fate, well, let's just say he played with fire, and in the end, he got burned. Cersei, eyes welling up with tears as she thought of her father and children, cursed, who would do such a thing? Targaryen scum, no doubt. Bahamut tilted his head, a sinister grin playing on his lips. No, my dear lady, not a Targaryen. It was I who brought the flames upon your father. A dragon's vengeance, you might say. Jaime found it hard to believe that the stranger before him was the one who killed his father. Both Jaime and Cersei stared at him in disbelief. Overwhelmed by grief, Cersei choked out, "You monstrous creature. Why? What do you gain from killing our father?" Bahamut chuckled, "Gain. Sometimes revenge is its own reward. Your father deserved a taste of my fiery vengeance." Cersei's tears turned to fury, and she lashed out with a stream of curses. "You'll pay for this. Lannisters will always pay their debts." Bahamut simply smiled, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "I look forward to it, my lady. But remember, it's not the Targaryens who bring fire and destruction, it's the dragon you see before you." Chapter 66. When they saw Bahamut's eyes glowing, it left them unable to speak, struck with horror at his otherworldly presence. Sensing that the situation was no longer amusing, Bahamut decided to leave the dungeon. He made his way back to the Tower of the Hand, which served as the residence of the Hand of the King. The next day, Aegon found Bahamut enjoying tea in the Tower of the Hand, an unusual sight for the dragon. Intrigued, Aegon joined him, and over tea, he inquired, "What are your plans for the remains of the Lannisters?" Bahamut, sipping his tea, replied, "Put that on hold for now. Send men to capture the Lannister imp from Essos. Offer a bounty on his head, alive." Aegon, puzzled, questioned, why exert so much effort on such an insignificant person? Varys, the former thief, emerged silently, adding, "Your Grace, I'd argue he is more dangerous than those imprisoned." Bahamut chimed in, "I agree. Despite being an imp, his intelligence rivals Tywin's. More importantly, he could be more useful alive than disposed of." Aegon, hesitant, mentioned, "But he's a Lannister." Bahamut countered, "Sometimes, enemies make better tools than allies. They fear us, and that fear makes them more dedicated." Aegon pondered, acknowledging the truth in Bahamut's words. Expressing disappointment, Bahamut remarked, "We are surrounded by former enemies who prove more dedicated than allies." Why the hesitation? Aegon admitted, "You're right, Pop." It was a momentary emotional sway. Bahamut, dissatisfied, urged, "Our decisions should be driven by strategy, not emotion." Turning to Varys, he commanded, "Ask your little birds to find the imp's whereabouts." Varys nodded and left, promising to fulfill Bahamut's request. Then Bahamut turned his attention to Aegon. "Aegon," he began, "I wish to draft letters to House Hightower and House Tyrell, notifying them of our upcoming visit to the Citadel next month." Aegon, sensing the strategic implications, grinned knowingly. Bahamut playfully snapped Aegon's forehead and inquired, "What's behind that smile of yours?" Aegon, with a hint of sarcasm, asked, "Pop, how do you plan to handle the Citadel?" Bahamut, sporting a smirk, replied, "Strike when the iron is hot, my boy. They fear our existence, and they remain oblivious to our true stance, especially since they lost their rats in King's Landing. The unknown terrifies the strong-willed, and we are the unknown. Besides, the Citadel can contribute to the realm's betterment." Aegon, with a playful smile, inquired, "Will it be a burning or a living?" Bahamut chuckled, "If they yield and relinquish complete authority over the Citadel to the throne, then they live. Otherwise, they burn alive. A lesson for them, knowledge isn't always true power." As Aegon excused himself to send the ravens to House Hightower and House Tyrell, Bahamut seized the moment to delve into the consciousness of Jon Snow, now known as Aemon. Observing through Jon's eyes, he witnessed the Night's Watch marching towards the ancient fist of the first man. The fist, a hill shaped like a fist thrust into the sky, with jagged stones at the top resembling knuckles, loomed ahead. Bahamut eavesdropped on the continuous chatter like radio from Samwell Tarly, who brimmed with excitement about venturing beyond the wall and shared his knowledge about the fist of the first man. Intrigued, Bahamut pondered the historical significance of the fist, how the first men and children of the forest had once used it as a natural defensive position against the looming threat of the White Walkers. As Bahamut continued to peer through Jon Snow's eyes, he couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and amusement. Jon, working diligently to gain acknowledgement from his peers, had embarked on a perilous journey beyond the wall. However, Bahamut couldn't help but find Jon's decisions, at times, rather foolish. Suppressing the urge to communicate with Jon, knowing that it might make him appear peculiar to his fellow Night's Watchmen, Bahamut decided to watch silently. He observed Jon's determination and commitment, despite the odds and the harsh judgments of others. When Corin Halfhand commented on Jon's apparent lack of intelligence with a remark like, "You're even dumber than you look," Bahamut found it difficult to stifle his laughter. In the midst of Jon's confusion and Corin's inquiry, Bahamut couldn't resist having a laugh in Jon's consciousness, leaving Jon to glance around, bewildered. When questioned about what was wrong, Jon quickly replied with a curt "nothing," masking the unusual interaction with Bahamut. Chapter 67. After watching the north beyond the wall through Jon, Bahamut's consciousness returned to his body. It was already the next day, and having informed the servants not to disturb him until called, no one had interrupted him during his astral journey. Bahamut descended the tower and decided to find Aegon. He walked towards the throne room, sensing Aegon's presence there. Upon arriving at the throne room, his attention was immediately drawn to the Iron Throne, a symbolic centerpiece in the series. Recognizing Bahamut, the generals bowed in respect, aware of his identity after being informed that he had taken on a human form, a fact that became increasingly unfathomable with each passing day. As Bahamut entered, Aegon descended from the throne in a show of respect, knowing it was Bahamut's first time in the throne room. After playfully rubbing Aegon's head, Bahamut approached the Iron Throne and took a seat. In response, everyone in the room knelt, and Aegon followed suit, enjoying Bahamut's whimsical antics as he overstepped the usual formalities. Then, with a stern expression, Bahamut spoke, "Aegon, I've always wondered why this throne is considered so special, enticing humans to greedily desire this ugly chair that isn't even remotely comfortable. Do they believe they are almighty and powerful when they possess this cursed thing, forged from the blood of enemies and fire? Illusions can make mortals look like fools." Bahamut rose from the seat, declaring, "Boring, get up." Aegon promptly stood, responding with a touch of wit, "As you wish, your grace," accompanied by a small smile. Bahamut, smiling in return, said, "Cut the crap, Aegon." Then, addressing the other generals, Bahamut declared, "I need to speak with him alone," prompting the others to leave the throne room after bowing to both Aegon and Bahamut. Bahamut turned his attention towards Aegon and inquired, "What are your plans next, Aegon? Right now, you have the crown, the men, and the only thing lacking is your queen." Aegon, wearing a smile, replied, "I'm not sure, but I've found someone interesting." Curious, Bahamut asked with a surprised expression, "Who?" Aegon, with a slightly embarrassed expression, confessed, "Marjorie Tyrell." As Bahamut heard the name, he asked, "Excuse me, can you tell me her name again?" Aegon repeated, louder, "Marjorie Tyrell." Bahamut then grabbed Aegon's arms and asked bluntly, "Don't tell me you've been involved with her." Aegon's face turned red as he hastily responded, "No, I won't do that." Bahamut, removing his grasp, sighed, "Shit, you're still a kid to fall for her. I won't allow this, there's no way you're going to marry the clever manipulator." Confused, Aegon asked, "Why, Pop?" Bahamut explained seriously, "I know why you feel she's good. From the outside, she appears compassionate and kind. But inside, she's clever and a gifted manipulator, willing to use her sexuality to her advantage. She's charitable towards the poor and uses her class as a means of assistance because she's aware that her wealthy upbringing puts her in a class above others. Don't let her desires win. Don't let her become the queen." Aegon struggled to find words, taken aback by Bahamut's sudden denial. Despite having a crush on Marjorie and conducting thorough research on her, still he chose to believe Bahamut. Seeing Aegon's lack of protest, Bahamut asked, "Anyone else?" Aegon, with a somewhat sad expression, replied, "Nope. Bahamut suggested, then how about Stark? I'm sure she would make a good wife for you. Aegon questioned, why are you giving so much attention to Stark, Pop? Bahamut explained, because I don't hate them. That girl, Sansa, even though she's a slow learner, still has the potential to become a queen. A real queen. Aegon nodded in agreement. While he found Sansa attractive, he considered her naive and didn't deem her worthy of attention. If Bahamut saw her potential, perhaps he had overlooked something. Bahamut concluded, okay then, after dealing with the remaining Lannisters and the Citadel, we can start the search for a bride for you. Then, Bahamut remembered Jon Snow and casually remarked, anyway, you're going to have a wildling sister-in-law soon. Aegon looked confused and asked, whose? Bahamut responded, your half-brother. Aegon, taken aback, questioned, isn't he a Night's Watchman? As Bahamut walked away, he chuckled and said, he has the blood of the dragon. Dragons don't follow rules. And he is destined to cause trouble. Chapter 68. Returning to Dragonstone under the cover of night, Bahamut had a specific experiment in mind, one that involved the dragon eggs he had obtained from Moon. In his absence, he left the role of Hand of the King to the old general, trusting him to manage affairs in King's Landing. Upon reaching Dragonstone, Bahamut found himself in the company of Sapphire and Daeval, two of his dragons. Despite their imposing size, these dragons attracted many curious onlookers attempting to catch a glimpse of living dragon. Sapphire, known for her more peaceful demeanor, didn't pose a threat to those who approached unless they have posed threat to her. However, Daeval, Bahamut's more territorial dragon, had a different approach. Daeval didn't tolerate intruders and had a penchant for making them into unexpected snacks. His aggressive behavior had become known even to the people of Noth. Any unfortunate soul attempting to approach Dragonmont with less than noble intentions ended up as a meal for Daeval. Bahamut strolled toward the cave of Dragonmont, a single black dragon egg cradled in his possession in his human form. Bahamut was greeted by the watchful eyes of Daeval, who had stationed himself outside. Before long, Sapphire, the other dragon, emerged to welcome Bahamut. Though their movements were more lethargic now, a sign of the extended stay without their master, they hadn't forgotten the joy of Bahamut's presence. The dragons, with their massive heads, approached Bahamut, nudging him affectionately. As a form of greeting. Responding to their touch, Bahamut began to rub their scales. However, Sapphire's curiosity was piqued. She sensed something different, the dragon egg Bahamut held. Intrigued, Sapphire decided to follow Bahamut deeper into the cave, leaving Daeval to stand guard at the entrance. When Bahamut reached the vast cavity within the cavern, he decided to employ the same magic that had aided his transformation into a new species of dragon, albeit with slight modifications and less input, given that it was merely an egg. Although Moon had laid the egg a while ago, it hadn't hatched, primarily because Bahamut had chosen to deny it. Consequently, the egg had begun the slow process of turning into stone, displaying a lack of the essence and potential inherent in a true dragon. As Bahamut contemplated the transformation process, he prepared to infuse the egg with the magical energy needed to elevate it to the status of a genuine true dragon egg. Sapphire, the watchful dragon, observed with curiosity as Bahamut commenced the intricate procedure. Delving into the profound realms of magical theory, Bahamut envisioned the elemental forces defining the nature of dragons. Placing the dragon egg in the center, Bahamut envisioned the ethereal link between dragons and magic, woven into the fabric of their existence. His magic theory focused on the convergence of elemental energies, fire, air, earth, and water, forces deeply attuned to dragons. He pictured the black egg absorbing these elemental essences, setting it apart from other creatures. With a subtle gesture, Bahamut initiated the transfer of magical energies, envisioning a harmonious fusion, a dance of elements converging within the egg. Fire granted the fierce spirit of dragons, air the gift of flight, earth provided strength, and water bestowed vitality. The cavern resonated with a mystical hum as the magical energies permeated the black egg. Bahamut's concentration remained unbroken, his mastery over magic guiding the transformation. Once a mere fire-breathing creature, the egg now pulsed with the potential to hatch a true dragon. As the magical infusion reached its zenith, Bahamut sealed the enchantment with an ancient incantation, its echoes reverberating through the cavern. The air shimmered, and the wyvern egg, now transformed, bore the unmistakable aura of a true dragon egg. Sensing the profound change, Sapphire approached the newly transformed egg with a mix of curiosity and acknowledgement. The dragon egg was no longer bound by Valyrian magic, requiring life to hatch and a connection to Valyrian blood. Unmistakably, it had become a new species of dragon, just like Bahamut. Slowly, the egg started cracking, signaling that it was about to hatch. Nervously, Bahamut approached the dragon, unsure if his efforts had paid off. Soon, a small paw emerged from the egg, and through the cracks, Bahamut saw luminous gold eyes looking at him, confirming that his hard work had indeed paid off. Chapter 68.5. Gazing into the golden eyes that peered at him through the cracks in the eggshell, Bahamut couldn't help but feel a sense of intelligence emanating from the dragonling, a trait distinct from the four-limbed dragons he had encountered before. The paw that had cracked the shell wasn't a leg, but rather similar to his own arms, confirming that the hatchling possessed the same physical structure as him, much to Bahamut's delight. Approaching the newborn with delicate steps, Bahamut felt the weight of responsibility as a parent to the baby dragon. The dilemma of whether to assist the hatchling in breaking free from the egg or to let it navigate the process itself lingered in Bahamut's mind. In the fantastical world of dragons, hatching was a sacred and pivotal moment, a transition from the safety of the egg to the vast world beyond. The ability of the hatchling to break free and consume its own shell symbolized resilience and the instinctual strength required to thrive in the challenging world that awaited. However, Bahamut found himself uncertain about whether these fantastical traditions applied to the dragons in this world. The only certainty he had was that hatchlings did indeed consume the broken shells of their eggs, based on his experience raising 4 dragons. After some time, the hatchling grew bolder as it observed Bahamut's lack of hostility, finding strength in its hunger to overcome the initial fear of the powerful elder dragon. To Bahamut's surprise, the baby dragon of his kind proved to be irresistibly cute. Moreover, from the distinct scent that lingered in the air, Bahamut confirmed that the hatchling was, indeed, a female. Motivated by newfound courage, Aithusa used her strength to break free from the eggshell, a spectacle that Bahamut found both impressive and endearing. Without hesitation, she began to consume the broken shells, exhibiting a swift and efficient appetite. Bahamut couldn't tear his eyes away from the enchanting creature, a moving, shining black stone that was only half the size of a fully grown cat. The 2 baby horns atop her head gave her a distinctive appearance, making her head seem slightly larger for her diminutive body. Bahamut continued to observe Aithusa, captivated by her every move, until she finished consuming the shells and turned her gaze toward him. He sensed a nervous energy emanating from the baby dragon, a natural response to the inherent superiority and the formidable presence he carried as a dragon. It was a pressure not to be taken lightly. Deciding that it was time to bestow a name upon the hatchling, a name that would shape her identity and destiny, Bahamut approached Aithusa with careful steps. With a gentle smile, he declared, "Your name shall be Aithusa." In response, Aithusa blinked, as if recognizing the given name. Bahamut, ever the elder dragon, continued to approach her with care, extending a warm welcome. "Welcome, Aithusa," he spoke with a tone that resonated with wisdom. "May your wings soar through the skies, and may your flames burn with the intensity of 1,000 suns." Chapter 69. Bahamut extended his hand slowly toward Aithusa, who appeared slightly apprehensive in his presence. On the sidelines, Sapphire observed the little one, recognizing the budding strength emanating from the hatchling. With cautious movements, Bahamut gently lifted Aithusa into his hand, and to his surprise, the small dragon extended her own tiny hand, reaching out to touch Sapphire in return. Sapphire, acknowledging the gesture, lowered her head to the baby dragon, a silent exchange of acceptance and connection. As they emerged from the depths of Dragonmont, Bahamut noticed a distinct confusion in Dieval's eyes as he beheld the baby dragon now cradled in Bahamut's hand. Dieval, sensing Bahamut's essence within the hatchling along with his, also perceived that this little one held a superiority over him. Lowering his head, Dieval observed the baby dragon with a mix of curiosity and a sense of respect, realizing that the hatchling carried the essence of Bahamut, not sure why. Bahamut watched this interaction unfold with a smile, witnessing the bond forming between the newborn and the adult dragons. After a while, sensing that Aithusa was neither hostile nor in any distress, Bahamut bid farewell to the adult dragons, taking Aithusa with him. He believed that the baby dragon would only be truly safe in his presence. Upon their arrival at Dragonstone, Bahamut promptly requested the servants to prepare a small portion of meat for Aithusa in his room. The sight of a baby dragon, distinctly different from the dragons they were accustomed to, surprised and enchanted the servants, who couldn't resist the allure of the creature's undeniable cuteness. Aithusa, in turn, found herself curious about the humans and their peculiar behaviors. Her eyes traced the contours of the castle, sensing the essence of dragon magic woven into its very structure. Meanwhile, Bahamut, amused by the baby dragon's antics, strolled alongside her as they made their way to his room. The servants exchanged glances, expressing their astonishment and delight at the unprecedented sight. Aithussa's every movement, every chirp, seemed to captivate their attention. In his interactions with Aithussa, Bahamut discovered a certain joy in spoiling her, a stark contrast to the strict demeanor he adopted with other dragons he had raised. Perhaps it was because she was the first of his kind, carrying a small fragment of his essence. Whenever the little dragon extended her clawed hand toward something, Bahamut would bring her closer, allowing her to inspect whatever had caught her interest. Upon entering his room, Bahamut gently placed the baby dragon on the bed, thinking she might want to take a nap. However, Aithussa, displaying boundless energy and curiosity, began to play around the bed, finding every nook and cranny intriguing. Bahamut, reveling in the joy of the moment, decided to play along with Aithussa. He rolled around on the bed, inviting the baby dragon to join in the playful act. Aithussa, eager to emulate Bahamut, attempted to roll as well, but her efforts were hindered by the presence of her wings. Despite her best attempts, she couldn't quite match the Bahamut's rolling, and a hint of puppy-like frustration crept into her expressive eyes. Observing her struggle, Bahamut couldn't help but smile at the endearing sight. Aithussa, not one to give up easily, continued to roll around, her wings adding a charming clumsiness to the whole endeavor. However, her determination waned, and soon she gazed up at Bahamut with puppy eyes, silently seeking assistance. In response, Bahamut gently scooped her up into his hand and carried her towards the window. With a sense of excitement, he aimed to show her the vast expanse of the sea outside her room. As they reached the window, Aithussa's attention was immediately captured by the moonlit beauty of the sea. The gentle waves shimmered in the moonlight, creating a mesmerizing dance of reflection and shadow. To enhance her experience and make the moment even more delightful, Bahamut contemplated revealing his true form to her outside of Dragonstone. However, his thoughts were abruptly interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. Servants entered, bearing a portion of meat specially prepared for Aithussa's nourishment. Despite Bahamut's request for a modest portion of meat, the servants arrived bearing not just the anticipated meal but also a selection of wine and fruits. Their gesture, perhaps driven by a belief in Bahamut's gentlemanly demeanor, did not go unnoticed. Bahamut appreciated their thoughtfulness and, with a nod, allowed the servants to leave. As the servants departed, their fleeting glances toward Aithussa did not escape Bahamut's notice. The baby dragon, however, was entirely preoccupied with the tantalizing scent of the meat they had brought. Her eyes gleamed with curiosity as she focused on the culinary delights laid out before her. Bahamut, satisfied that everything was in order, decided to let Aithussa enjoy her meal. The aroma of the cooked meat wafted through the air, and Aithussa, with a delicate sniff, sought Bahamut's permission to partake. He responded by pushing the plate of meat gently toward her. Eagerly, Aithussa wasted no time sinking her teeth into the savory offering. The cooked meat, prepared by the skilled hands of the servants, met her approval, and she proceeded to devour the contents of the plate with undisguised enthusiasm. Bahamut observed her with a warm smile, appreciating the simple joy and excitement she derived from her meal. Chapter 70. After Aithussa finished eating, she quickly fell asleep. Once the dragonling was in bed, Bahamut looked towards King's Landing and sensed a dark undercurrent in the magical currents originating from there. His eyes turned a golden glow as he focused his power and peered through the sleeping Aegon's eyes, merging his consciousness with the young prince's form. Aegon's features subtly twisted, and an ethereal glow enveloped his body. In the shadows, a faceless man emerged, cloaked in darkness and ready to carry out a deadly contract. Moving silently, the mysterious assassin aimed to fulfill a contract bearing the weight of death. However, as the faceless man approached, Bahamut, now in Aegon's guise, confronted the would-be assailant. A cold and eerie voice echoed in the room as Bahamut, with cold eyes, said, "Your presence here is known, servant of shadows. The fate you seek to deliver shall be diverted." The faceless man, undeterred, spoke in a voice dancing on the edge of reality and illusion, "The death demands his due. No mortal, nor dragon, can escape the embrace of death." With a swift motion, Bahamut raised Aegon's hand, summoning flames that manifested draconic fury. The fire danced in his palm, a manifestation of the ancient power within the dragon. "The gods you serve hold no dominion here. I am Bahamut, Dragon King, and Aegon is under my protection." the faceless men, now illuminated by the fiery glow. In a clash between shadows and dragon fire, the assassin met a fate sealed in the convergence of destiny and the will of Bahamut. The flames engulfed the faceless men, leaving behind only ashes and a lingering sense of thwarted malevolence. As the fire subsided, Bahamut released his hold on Aegon's slumbering form, and the young prince continued his peaceful sleep, unaware of the spectral battle. When Bahamut returned to his own body, he noticed Aithusa awake and frightened in a corner of the bed. Worried for Aegon's safety, Bahamut unintentionally released a strong aura that startled Aithusa, who was sensitive to magic as a dragon. With an apologetic expression, Bahamut approached Aithusa to calm her down. After soothing Aithusa back to sleep, Bahamut felt the need to check what was happening beyond the wall. To his disappointment, he found Jon peacefully sleeping with Ygritte, leaving no room for excitement. However, Bahamut considered paying a visit to the House of Black and White to deal with their affairs. The only thing holding him back was Aithusa, who was too young to accompany him or be left alone. With limited options, Bahamut decided to restrain his wrath against the House of Black and White, prioritizing the safety of the young dragon. Still, Bahamut couldn't contain his excitement about having Aithusa by his side, knowing she was as powerful as he was. The only thing left to confirm was whether she could think and talk like him, more human-like. He was sure she was unique, capable of expressing various emotions unlike other dragons. As Bahamut pondered over Aithusa, his thoughts shifted to Rhaenys and Moon, who hadn't returned with her aunt yet. He hoped they were safe and well. There was a sense of anticipation, a feeling that something happy was about to happen. Little did Bahamut know, Rhaenys was pregnant with a child, a joyful surprise that awaited him. The next morning, after breakfast, Bahamut took Aithusa for a walk. Aithusa was thrilled and played around him, creating a joyous atmosphere. While playing on the grass, something surprising happened. Aithusa started floating. Before she could understand what was going on, she found herself on Bahamut's back, who had transformed into a colossal dragon. This revelation left her both confused and excited. Aithusa had always felt a connection with Bahamut, but his true identity as a powerful and enormous dragon surprised her. His imposing presence gave off the aura of a ruler, making her acknowledge Bahamut in a new light. Overwhelmed with excitement, she let out a screeching sound. Bahamut, now in dragon form, headed north before Jon could meet the king beyond the wall. This strategic move aimed to prevent the Night King from gaining more forces by striking a deal with the wildlings. If the wildlings weren't willing to cooperate, Bahamut was ready to unleash his fiery power, turning any resistance into ashes for the Night King.